What would it be like if Spider-Man was a Power Ranger? Well, that question was kind of answered before the Power Rangers even existed, and it can be argued that the franchise has only done so well because of the enormous impact that Japanese Spider-Man had on the genre. One of the weirdest, goofiest, most bizarre incarnations of Spider-Man, and just one of the strangest shows that I've watched in general. Japanese Spider-Man was a tokusatsu produced as part of a contract between Toei and Marvel from 1978 to 1979. If you don't know what a tokusatsu is, it's a Japanese film or drama with a huge emphasis on practical effects. Godzilla, Kamen Rider, Super Sentai, Ultraman, and this influence would extend to the West, leading to Power Rangers. You know how in Power Rangers they always summon the giant robot, the Megazord? Yeah, Leopardon was the first Megazord. The first thing you'll notice about this version of Spider-Man is that he's almost nothing like what you would expect from the character. He has a gigantic robot, Leopardon, a car, the Spider Machine GP7, a ship named Marveler, and a gadget on his wrist which can do all kinds of things, dubbed the Spider Bracelet. Plus, a large portion of his powers come from his suit, the Spider Protector, which can be summoned with the bracelet. He had some very scarce appearances ever since his conception. There were 41 episodes of the show produced, and then a long period of dormancy until he appeared in the Spider-Verse and Spider-Geddon comics. He's also due to make an appearance in Across the Spider-Verse, as confirmed by Phil Lord. It's a show with a lot of heart, a ridiculous amount of humor. I'm not kidding when I say it's probably one of the funniest shows I have ever seen. So much absurd and ridiculous stuff just happens out of nowhere, and it has that low budget sort of spearhead type charm about it, which is just so endearing. My name is Kamo. Get comfy, get a warm drink, and get ready for an extremely long, in-depth, deep dive and retrospective on Japanese Spider-Man. Before we begin, you might be familiar with this clip from the show where Spider-Man gets unmasked, but there's an infinite number of masks underneath, ultimately preserving his identity. Japanese Spider-Man uses his Spider Protector to keep his identity safe from all kinds of malicious figures and attacks, because there's nothing worse and more dangerous than having your own personal data completely compromised. That's why this video is brought to you by Atlas VPN. You might not have sensitive info on the same level as literally being Spider-Man, but you definitely don't want hackers, ISPs, and marketers snooping around your data whilst you're browsing the internet. Or, you know, just trying to sit back and enjoy watching Spider-Man 2 on so they completely removed every single Spider-Man movie from my region's Netflix. Yeah, if you use streaming services at all, you will know how temperamental certain shows and movies can be. One day they're there, the next day they're gone. But not everywhere. For example, if I use Atlas VPN to connect to Italy, boom, everything is there. The Raimi trilogy, the Web duology, the Home trilogy, yes, even No Way Home, Into the Spider-Verse, and both Venom movies. Atlas VPN offers fast speeds too, so you're not going to suffer any buffering or lag whilst you're using a VPN to watch your favorite shows and movies. And if you use my trackable link below, get.atlasvpn.com/Kamo, then you can enjoy incredibly low prices at 82% off, which is only $2 a month, down from $10.99 US a month for 3 years of usage, and it comes with a 30-day money-back guarantee. So rest assured, if you use it and you decide this isn't really my thing, then you can get your money back. Yeah, huge thanks to Atlas VPN for sponsoring this video. It helped me pay for this beautiful new channel art painted by the incredibly skilled Isaac Drawerman. And now, let's get into the first episode of Japanese Spider-Man. Okay, so if the clips at the beginning weren't enough to sell you on the concept of this guy, then you really need to see the opening. Episode 1 begins at the Yamashiro Astro-Archaeological Laboratory. An unidentified flying object, soon to be a meteor, has been detected by Dr. Hiroshi Yamashiro in his lab. Elsewhere, his son, a motorcyclist known as Takuya Yamashiro, is speeding around on an off-road dirt track. Suddenly, he comes to a stop, hearing a voice in his head. Takuya then notices the ship, aka Marveler, which turns out to be the UFO from earlier, flying overhead. It crash lands, attracting the attention of Professor Yamashiro. He's not the only person intrigued by Marveler, however. Two menacing-looking figures, known as Professor Monster and Amazoness, express their familiarity with Marveler. Apparently, it fled to space 400 years ago and should still be there, but a person known as Garia, who was presumed dead, has managed to use their telepathy to communicate with it. The two are worried about Professor Yamashiro because they know he will soon find Marveler and will use it to create an enemy to what is known as a machine BEM, Professor Monster's creation. Amazoness is instructed to kill Professor Yamashiro, so she takes this. Bukanuru. Amazoness goes undercover, encountering the girl who was taking pictures of Takuya earlier, Hitomi Sakuma. Go investigate the ship, bring it to Professor Yamashiro. My guy Takuya is just working on his bike. He has a race tomorrow. Hitomi appears and tells him that they need to go and excavate a meteorite, meaning that tomorrow's race is cancelled. No. I don't think so. The only thing I care about is my motorcycle, baby. He hears the voice again and just kind of runs out of his house, screaming into the distance, "Who are you?" Abruptly, it cuts to the next day, where Professor Yamashiro is investigating Marveler. Unbeknownst to him and his group, they're being watched by Amazon as he puts down. Buccaneer. Takuya isn't there though, he's busy riding his motorcycle. Here's the voice again, beckoning him. The time for revenge is here. He gets on his bike and heads towards the voice. Professor Yamashiro and his group are being attacked by Buken Ryu, who has now grown into a large monster. Takuya runs into Hitomi and his sister Shinko Yamashiro. They manage to get away, but Professor Yamashiro is soon found by Takuya and he is gravely injured. He asks him what happened. Recently, a group has been invading Earth, and he entrusts his last wish to his son, pleading with him to find this group and to put a stop to them. He then dies. Takuya finds some huge footprints, and then he's attacked by Perry the Platypus Rangers. He gets stabbed in the neck, and they all just sort of scuttle after him until he falls into a cave. Whilst in the cave, he finds the person. It's the owner of the voice, the person claiming to be his brother. It's Garia, and he claims to be from a place called Planet Spider. Garia tells Takuya that the people who killed his father were the Iron Cross army, commandeered by Professor Monster, their leader. Takuya suddenly falls over. He's about to die. I mean, he did get stabbed in the neck, after all. In an attempt to save his life, Garia injects Takuya with something known as Spider Extract. Oh, he's fine. Only one person in the entire universe can pick up on his telepathy, and that person was Takuya. Why? I don't know. Garia seeks revenge. Planet Spider, his home planet, was invaded by Professor Monster a long time ago. Garia has been seeking revenge ever since, chasing him all the way to Earth, but he got trapped in this cave, a cave full of poisonous spiders. He endured the poisonous spiders for 400 years. Takuya has been given the power of Spider-Man. Garia dies and then turns into a spider. So, you know, Takuya's just chilling in his bed when suddenly a spider starts to speak to him, telling him to become Spider-Man, using the device given to him by Garia on his wrist, known as the Spider Bracelet. It can be used to call Marveler and summon the Spider Protector, which is the suit that allows him to become Spider-Man. He presses the button and the suit comes out. There he is! He's crawling around. Spider-Man climbs onto the ceiling to avoid being seen by his siblings. This is so silly. So Spider-Man now has his mission: defeat the Iron Cross army to avenge his father and Garia. It's time to web swing. So it turns out a nuclear physicist has been kidnapped by a dinosaur. Spider-Man realizes it must be the Iron Cross army. Garia speaks to him, teaching him about his spider senses. Japanese Spidey has slightly different spider senses than the norm in terms of how they work, to say the least. He detects a presence like 50 kilometers away. He gets some truly wonderful still shots of him just climbing up and down buildings very, very slowly. Spider-Man sneaks in, taking down some platypus guys, infiltrating the base. We got a legendary scene incoming, one that you've probably seen before. He said it! He saves the physicist and then spider net. These enemies have the strangest way of approaching him. They walk forward and then they backflip, and then they walk forward and backflip again. They're playing the neutral game. Amazon S deploys Buken Ryu. Spider-Man is outmatched here. I mean, Buken Ryu is far too big of a monster. His spider string doesn't really He needs another plan. So he uses his Spider Bracelet to call Marveler. Is that a spider car? Yeah, this is the Spider Machine GP7. It flies and it shoots missiles. He enters Marveler and exclaims, "Oh yeah, it's big robot time." Marveler transforms into the iconic Leopardon, which is Spider-Man's signature move. He uses Arc Turn, which is like this boomerang-esque projectile. Then he brings out the game-ending move, Sword Vigor. Professor Monster is not pleased. He acknowledges Spider-Man and Leopardon as his greatest enemy. Spider-Man then proclaims that he will fight the Iron Cross army for as long as he lives. The battle has just begun. Episode 2 begins with Takuya waking up, hearing Garya's voice once more. He tells him that the Iron Cross army is on the move. Mysteriously, during the night, the winds reach a maximum velocity of 40 kilometers an hour, but then they die down in the morning. Takuya is rudely awoken by Hitomi, who, by the way, is his girlfriend. Turns out there's been an incident. A train overturned and she wants to nab a prize photo, so she asks Takuya to drive her there on his bike. That's kind of a messed up thing to say. He died like yesterday. Apparently the heavy winds from last night caused the trains to overturn. Takuya's not so sure. He goes to church and visits Christ. He reminisces on Garya's past. 400 years ago, in the M77 nebula of the 17th Milky Way, there was a planet, much like Earth. It was attacked by Professor Monster and his Iron Cross army. Garya was away at the time, returning to complete destruction. Wait a second. Toei just recycled this plot for Dragon Ball. Garya finds Professor Monster and challenges him to a fight to the death. He uses his spider powers and almost beats Professor Monster until he caves in the ground beneath him, trapping him inside the poisonous spider cave for the next, 400 years. He tells Marveler to retreat and wait for the day that they can get their revenge. So 20 years on Earth is 1 year on Planet Spider, meaning it was only really 20 years for Garya. So during these 400 years, he searched for a successor, which leads us to Takuya's story. Takuya takes a sudden interest in Hitomi talking about an injured passenger from the train accident supposedly seeing a ghost. He asks her to come with him to the hospital. Oh, that guy died. Takuya asks Hitomi what he said to her. Strange pale thing. Okay, this is getting a bit personal. They're doing it again. Why are they surrounding her like this? Of course, Spider-Man comes to her rescue. Professor Monster deduces that Garya must have given his powers to Spider-Man in the cave. Takuya asks Garya if the Iron Cross army is on the move, but then he dies. For real this time. We're then given an in-depth explanation on the nature of Spider-Man's spider sense.
A vision.
He successfully stops the train, finds the strange pale thing, which is actually called Satukin, and chases after it in his spider machine. The main theme plays as he fights off against some, really I should find some names for these things. Oh, they have names. They're called ninjas. Okay, I'm not saying that. I'm just going to call them foot soldiers. Yeah, grab him! The brain reconnects to its body, which makes for a marginally less funny villain. So Leopardon blows it up. Episode 3 opens with a thief breaking into a building, but he is instantly caught and unmasked. As the thief is being taken away, the car gets blown up and he gets taken by the foot soldiers. Takuya is on his motorcycle until he finds out from Hitomi that a monster appeared last night. A monster with the ability to emit powerful light and blind someone. Takuya doesn't care, it's time to bite! The Phantom Thief goes through the scene from a clockwork orange. He gets hypnotized by this guy. He's then told that he's to frame Spider-Man by posing as him and stealing and destroying as much as possible in an attempt to bait out the real Spider-Man. The Phantom Thief isn't even dressed as Spider-Man, for the record, he just writes Spider-Man whenever he steals something, and I guess that is just convincing enough. Takuya's not very happy about this. Hitomi teams up with a detective from earlier and goes out looking for the Phantom Thief, while Spider-Man watches from a distance. They head up the building in pursuit of him, as does Spider-Man, but he is then blinded by this monster's purple eye beams, allowing for them to escape. Takuya deduces where the Phantom Thief might appear next, based on previous locations. He notices him front flip over an oncoming car, which kind of gives away that he's the guy he's looking for. Takuya suits up as Spider-Man, catching the thief and unmasking him, only for them to both be attacked. Then he absolutely styles on him with this mid-air split kick. It should have been me! On second thought, Spider-Man calls forth the Spider Machine GP7, driving the Phantom Thief away from danger and questioning him about the Iron Cross army. The thief goes on about his love for the circus. The circus is where his heart truly lies. It's his dream. Stealing is bad. He turns himself in. The creature's blinding attacks no longer have an effect on Spider-Man because it's daylight. He just leaps on him. The bug-eyed monster turns huge, revealing its name to be Genyuchu. It uses its wings to create a powerful wind, which is how it overturned the train in the first place. Spider-Man summons Leopardon, engaging in hand-to-hand combat with Genyuchu. He uses his arm rockets, but Genyuchu fires out his mouth and latches it onto Leopardon's leg. With a quick arc turn, he regains the advantage, and then... This is me writing the script for this video. In episode 4, Professor Monster is trying to create a program that can assassinate Spider-Man. If all goes to plan, the calculations determine that Spider-Man will definitely die. Takia wakes up from a nightmare. Yes, that was his nightmare. And opens up a newspaper only to read, Spider-Man dead, June 4th. Takia finds out that a woman planned the funeral for Spider-Man to be on June 7th. Nobody seems to know who actually placed the notice in the newspaper. He drives off on his bike. The world could be ending, and Takia would just go biking. Sure that the Iron Cross army is behind this, Takia heads out with conviction to stop them. This fishman suddenly appears out of the ocean, drowning a random couple. Takia hears of the fishman, staking him out. Yeah, fishman, gotta be the Iron Cross army. When isn't it the Iron Cross army? No, that's just a woman. The merman attacks Hitomi while she tries to nab a photo of it. Takia hears her scream, suiting up as Spider-Man. Oh, he has night vision. Okay. Hitomi is safe as the police show up, but Spider-Man is still in hot pursuit of the merman. He activates the Spider Detector, a feature of his Spider Bracelet which allows it to act as a detector via ultrasonic waves. Spider-Man infiltrates a building following his Spider Detector, only to fall through the vents and into a cage. Amazoness and Professor Monster are there waiting for him. He's fallen straight into their trap. Spider-Man and Professor Monster finally meet for the first time. Professor Monster has devised what he calls a Book of Fate, aka the results of his computer program designed to exterminate Spider-Man. Professor Monster states that according to the Book of Fate, Spider-Man is to have a battle with the merman and die as a result. It is his inescapable fate. The merman appears and so their deathmatch begins. In the midst of the fight, Spider-Man realizes that he's seen and experienced this battle before in the nightmare that he had earlier. He takes the merman's cutter to the chest, falling to the ground. He needs to do something fast or he's done. Using his quick thinking, he climbs onto the roof of the cage, kicking him out of it, and when Takia returns home, Hitomi and his siblings realize pretty quickly that he's badly hurt. He covers it up by claiming that he got into an accident whilst biking. When the doctor shows up, Takia has already fully healed and doing a handstand. Bro is fine. On the morning of June 7th, Spider-Man's planned funeral, Takia awakes from another nightmare where he will fall down a waterfall. He thinks that if he stays home, then there's no way this fate can occur. But his spider sense picks up on Hitomi screaming. He finds out from Shinko that Hitomi is still after the merman to get photos. He has no choice but to go after her, calling in the Spider Machine GP7.
Spider Machine GP7.
Hitomi is surrounded by the merman and some foot soldiers. She screams out for Spider-Man's help. Spider-Man just straight up destroys this helpless foot soldier by just pulling him off of a cliff. He then fights off the merman as he helps Hitomi escape, even telling her to drive the GP7 herself. Whilst fighting more foot soldiers in the water, the merman sneaks up behind him and tries to drown him, but he manages to swing away, continuing the fight near the waterfall, the one that he saw in his nightmare. He quickly realizes his nightmare is about to come true, and it does. He falls down the waterfall, just barely grabbing onto a rock. You can see his mouth very clearly in this scene where he's struggling to stay on. He screams out for Garia, causing a metaphorical spiderweb to descend from the heavens. In reality, it's just a vine. The car just spawns back in, out of nowhere, even though Hitomi took it earlier. Where did it come from? He changes into Leopardon, fighting the merman, who tries to hide himself in his machine gas. Leopardon uses a brand new move, fluoroscopic ray, which causes beams to emerge from his eyes and transport him into Breaking Bad, Mexico. Now able to see merman through his smoke, he uses the arc turn to sword vigor true combo, blowing him up. Professor Monster is he's not happy. Spider-Man with his little tree vine has won this battle. Episode 5, we begin with Iron Cross foot soldiers infiltrating a military base with a new machine BEM creature to steal a ton of missiles. Hitomi asks Takia if he wants to get married so that she can live her life as an easy housewife. So he ditches his girlfriend and he chases after a truck owned by the Iron Cross army until his bike gets blown up. Not the bike! He calls in the GP7, shooting missiles at the truck, causing it to crash. He scuttles towards it only to find that there's no one driving, with only a note that says, "Thank you, Spider-Man." Takia asks his sister for a down payment to buy a new bike. What is this pleading face emoji expression? Anyways, good for Takia because now he's got a brand new bike. Some child sees the Iron Cross army transporting their missiles, so Amazoness sends a bunch of foot soldiers to go kill him. Takia hears the boy calling for help, but he's already been hit by the car by the time he arrives. There's nothing that can be done. Apparently, this kid is definitely dead. Takia wants to use his own blood for a blood transfusion, but because his blood is part spider, he's not really sure if it's a good idea or if it's going to be compatible with him. Ultimately, with no other choice, he decides to go through with it. Takia has a dream about the time that he received the spider extract. During surgery, the child experiences a strange dream, similar to the one that Takia experienced. Takia asks Shinko and Hitomi to track down the child's parents. They find out that his name is Ichiro Murakami and that he had recently lost his parents in a fire. He was due to be sent to an orphanage but ran away, and he has been homeless ever since. The boy makes a full recovery. It looks like the spider blood worked. He tells tells Takia what he saw the Iron Cross army doing. Takia wastes absolutely no time heading out to stop them, sneaking into and infiltrating their base as Spider-Man. He does some stealth takedowns, dodges some bullets, and ultimately ends up face to face with Amazonas. Using the GP7, he enters a shootout with some foot soldiers and Land Rovers who are blown up by his missiles. So much for the no-kill rule. Machine Bem Chojinju reveals himself and goes boss mode. Spider-Man tries to fly into the air with the GP7 and uses missiles, but he's shot down. Quickly, he calls Marveler, changes into Leopardon, and enters a 1v1 with Chojinju, effortlessly walking through his attacks. He uses Leopardon strings, tripping up Chojinju and destroying him completely with Sword Vigor. Unlike the other monsters before him, however, Chojinju trips balls before he... The kid knows Spider-Man's secret identity via his intuition, so they declare themselves to be brothers. Episode 6 begins with a group of men running through a forest, being hunted by Amazonas and her foot soldiers. One by one, they get shot down, resulting in the last guy jumping into the ocean to escape. Professor Monster fears that the nature of his experiments on modified soldiers will be revealed by Yosuke Matsuki, a person who managed to escape. He orders his army to find and kill him. A girl named Junko arrives to see Takia, who's working on his bike. Junko tells him that he's come back, referring to Yosuke. It seems like he actually once knew Yosuke before he was thought to have died in a climbing accident. When he hears mention of the Iron Cross army being after him, Takia immediately puts his game face on. Easily the coolest Spider-Man. Takia and Yosuke reunite after 8 months. We learn of what happened to him. He was climbing up a mountain, as you do, when his rope inexplicably broke. But when he woke up, he was on a bed in the hideout of the Iron Cross army. Professor Monster had been trying to experiment on the deceased to revive them through strengthening them, effectively creating super soldiers. Also, they were the ones who broke his rope. Unsurprisingly, Professor Monster is a biologist, and biologists are evil. Yosuke notices a Machine Bem through the window, and the Iron Cross army has been tracking him down with their Machine Bem's superior sense of smell. In a bout of quick thinking, Takia asks Yosuke for his jacket so that they may use Yosuke's scent to throw the Machine Bem off of his tracks. Takia runs away, pursued by the Iron Cross army. He changes into his Spider-Man costume, climbing up a pole. Junko and Yosuke are cornered by some foot soldiers, but Spider-Man shows up and he takes care of it. Takia changes back into his regular clothes and meets up with Junko and Yosuke, having now escaped to a safe place. Yosuke tells Takia that the Iron Cross army's base must have been around Cape Onega due to the sea currents. Finally, Takia now has an idea of where the Iron Cross army's base of operations might be, so he goes biking. The foot soldiers are watching him because they found out that he used to be childhood friends with Yosuke, but they report to Amazonas that he's just been riding his bike. Takia plays baseball. It's actually terrible at this game. He doesn't want to avenge his father after all, he just wants to play baseball. Junko goes to get a doctor for Yosuke, who has come down with a major fever and keeps having nightmares. But unbeknownst to her, the foot soldiers have disguised themselves as a tree. How? Amazonas is about to shoot Junko because she won't tell her where Yosuke is, but then Yosuke puts himself in between the two. He begs for her to spare her life. Amazonas agrees, but only under one condition. Takia suddenly wakes up, his spider sense going off and detecting something far away. He changes into Spider-Man and calls a GP7, quickly heading off to save Junko and Yosuke. They're surrounded by foot soldiers, but Spider-Man swings to their rescue. Amazonas nods to Yosuke, giving him the go-ahead. He hesitates, but attempts to stab Spider-Man. He is warned by Junko, stopping him at the last second. Spider-Man just says, hey, stop that. Yosuke notices a sniper up in the trees, quickly shielding the bullet with his own body. Spider-Man, in typical montage fashion, absolutely sauces the foot soldiers up, climbs up the tree, down the tree, back up the tree again. Slaps this guy so hard that he makes this noise. They will start running away. Yosuke is dying, but before passing away, he tries to ask Spider-Man if he's Takia. Full of conviction to stop the inhumane experimental lab, Spider-Man drives towards the Iron Cross army's base in the GP7. He sneaks inside one of the labs, climbing up to the ceiling whilst being pursued by scientists. He shimmies around the room, scuttling down and disarming one of the foot soldiers, taking their machine gun. It's cool though, because Spider-Man doesn't use Oh my goodness. As he escapes the laboratory he blew up, Spider-Man comes face to face with the Machine Bem known as Robacula. He summons Leopardon. Wow, Robacula sucks. Did he do anything in this entire episode apart from just being like a glorified sniffer dog? The episode concludes with Takia and Junko at the coast mourning the death of Yosuke. Episode 7 starts off with a performance from a rock band known as Kobayashi Kitaro and the BB5. They're playing their current hit song, known simply as Spider-Man. It sounds like this. Spider-Man Boogie. Spider-Man Boogie. This is the Spider-Man Boogie episode. Takia's doing what he does best. He's biking. A cute detail I wanted to mention actually is that Takia's bike seems like it was intentionally designed to resemble Spider-Man's mask. You can make out the shape of the lenses here with the black outline, and the headlights kind of serve as the whites of the lenses. Anyway, this lobster dude shows up. Takuya, having detected it with his spider sense, suits up as Spider-Man and appears to fight it. Machine Bem is called Sasora. The two fight until Amazonas eventually demands that they withdraw. It seems as if the Iron Cross army had actually been trying to eliminate two people known as Professor Saotome and Director Murray at the research lab. The rock band is playing Spider-Man Boogie in Professor Monster's lab. Oh. The cyborgs, made by Professor Monster to resemble the real ones and to play sounds at a frequency that only spiders can hear. Spider-Man talks to the two scientists, discovering that they are being hunted down because they're designing a device that will be able to detect the members of the Iron Cross army even if they take on the form of a human. Spider-Man says, hey, you know, that's pretty cool, but you should make it somewhere else. You know, I can't even criticize him for this. If there was an unexplained funny thing hanging in front of me, I'd say, hey, funny thing hanging there, and grab it too. Takuya's girlfriend is intent on him doing the Spider-Man book, so she takes him to go see the band. Remember, these are the fake cyborg ones. They turn up the frequency and it starts absolutely decimating Takuya's ears. The scene is pretty amazing out of context because it looks like the music is just so bad that it's causing him physical agony. Yeah, Takuya has no idea why that happened, but he suspects it's the Iron Cross army making their move, so he makes sure that the scientists relocate to continue their research. One of the professors signals an SOS signal, so he heads over to save them. Sasora's attack on the professors is a trap laid by Professor Monster. The band is 5.5 kilometers from their location, and the frequency extends to 6 kilometers in range, meaning that Spider-Man will be in range of the ultrasonic frequency when he attempts to rescue them. Spider-Man Boogie strikes again, almost making him crash his car, and then he tries to swing, unsuccessfully. When he arrives at the villa, Sasora has seemingly already dispatched of the professors and easily beats on Spider-Man. The Iron Cross army has found Spider-Man's greatest weakness, Spider-Man Boogie. The song becomes like the most popular song in Japan. Takuya wakes up fully healed, but his ears are already being assaulted by Spider-Man Boogie. It is literally playing everywhere. We follow his descent into madness, unable to escape Spider-Man Boogie anywhere he goes. Somehow this has had more of an impact on him and posed more of a threat than any singular Machine Bem. Same goes for this guy. Professor Monster finds out from his foot soldiers that Director Murray is hiding out at a lodge and putting the finishing touches on his invention. You think he'd be safe here, right? No, they're outside the lodge playing the song. He's had enough. Blows them up! Missiles! Sasora tries to take out Director Murray back at the lodge, but Spider-Man chases him out onto a bridge, then throws him off of it. That isn't quite enough to beat him though. He turns colossal, as all Machine Bems tend to do. So Spider-Man calls in Leopardon and destroys him with sword vigor. Episode 8 begins with the Iron Cross army's foot soldiers digging up a cat grave. The cat lady is alerted by one of her cats and goes outside to find that the cat grave has been desecrated, but she proclaims that the curse of the cat will surely follow. Professor Monster shows Amazonas the skull of the cat demon. Apparently, 200 years ago, this demon cat was greatly feared, frequently attacking people at random. Fruit Ninja. Now, the skull haunts human beings. Can you hear its haunted voice? Basically, Professor Monster wants to create a Machine Bem out of the cat demon after he brings it back to life. Spooky cat demon. Takuya drives Hitomi to the cat lady since she heard about her ability to speak to cats and wants to investigate to see if she can write up a report about it. The cat lady tells Takuya and Hitomi that she was told by one of her cats that a cat grave had been desecrated last night. Takuya feels a sense of unease looking at the cat grave, but he doesn't really know why he feels uneasy. He can just sense the evil of the Iron Cross army. The cat demon attacks multiple people throughout the night. It seems like they're kind of like a vampire, essentially, drinking people's blood for nutrition. A regular cat spots the cat demon, so it throws a ring around it. Looks like it doesn't care at all, to be honest. Spider-Man appears, battling against the cat demon. The cat demon attempts to take a girl hostage, clawing her before making its escape. Amazonas tells the cat demon that they are not allowed to suck the blood of humans until they defeat Spider-Man. She also tells the cat demon to kill the old lady, which they do, but the cat's fine. Look at this little baby. Takuya swears to the kitten that he will defeat the cat demon. Sensing danger, Takuya tries to quickly change into Spider-Man, but he's too late and is attacked by the cat demon. We learn essential cat demon lore. They were abandoned by humans, being forced to steal in order to live. This made the humans try to kill them, so they mauled them to death. Fair enough. The cat demon seems to be convinced that Takuya is the one who fruit ninja'd them. You know, this guy from earlier. Takuya tries to fight off the cat demon, only barely escaping. Later, whilst at home, he comes down with a major fever. Despite his healing ability, the poison in the cat demon's claws has made his wound much, much worse. He thinks about what the cat demon said, considering the possibility that the fruit ninja samurai might have been his ancestor. It's not long before he recovers, but Hitomi isn't around. He quickly finds out that she's headed over to the temple to try and get a scoop on the cat demon. Of course, this puts her in danger, so Takuya suits up and takes his GP7 to go and save her. Hitomi is running from the cat demon, but this little freak is one step ahead of her. She screams out for Spider-Man, so he blows up the cat demon with missiles. He heads inside the temple and finds the cat seal, a spell to seal away the spirit of the cat demon. The cat demon takes a school bus hostage. Spider-Man doesn't even pursue the bus. He just casts a spell instead. And then the cat demon suffers major damage. It's actually kind of a miracle that this didn't cause the school bus to just completely crash. Instead, they just sort of lightly park the car, leave, then run away. Spider-Man could have indirectly killed many children on this day. He follows the cat demon. It turns huge. Leopardon. Episode 9 begins with Professor Monster showing Amazonas the blue diamond. It's the only one in the entire world. If installed into a machine BEM known as Kabuton, he'll be able to shoot a laser beam which is 100 times as powerful as his normal one. They test out the power of Kabuton's laser beam. Very strong, yes, very strong. Strong beetle indeed. No, I'm not owned. I'm not owned. Yeah, so machine BEMs don't just turn big, they can turn small too. Amazonas believes that Shinko might be connected to Spider-Man, so she tells the beetle to keep an eye on her. Takuya's younger brother, Takuji, captures the beetle and takes it to Takuya and Shinko. The beetle flies away, pursuing Shinko, who's heading off to see Professor Shinomura and his staff at Jonan University. Everywhere she goes, this funny little beetle is perched somewhere nearby, watching her. Professor has been developing a meteorite detector, following the wishes of the late Professor Yamashiro. With this detector, they'll be able to find meteorites that are buried deep below the Earth. Professor Yamashiro believed these meteorites to be the key to discovering the secrets of the universe. This big beetle appears in the lab, which causes Takuya's spider sense to flare up. He poses all up on him, then he engages in battle with Kabuton. He narrowly avoids Kabuton's powerful blue diamond enhanced laser. If he lands a direct hit, it's over. But luckily, the Spider Bracelet has a mirror, so he reflects the beam back at Kabuton with the mirror, causing major damage. The beetle continues to attempt to watch Shinko, but is wounded since its encounter with Spider-Man. Takuji finds the beetle and takes it inside the house, showing it to Shinko. She treats the beetle's wound, who is so taken aback by his first sign of affection that he starts thinking, hey, maybe this person isn't so bad, since, you know, Amazonas was just kind of mean to him. Shinko and Hitomi start to wear the beetles as animate accessories. You know what, Takuya, you're right, that actually is kind of messed up. Takuya is made to spend his only money on some jewelry for Shinko, but what Shinko really wants is this dress that he absolutely cannot afford because he hasn't won any biking competitions recently. Takuji and Shinko let their beetles free into the wild. Keeping beetles confined is not cool. This beetle watches her sleep, you know, like a little bit creepy, but okay. Since she was so nice to him, the beetle wants to show her gratitude. So, you know, they use their laser to break into and steal a dress from the store they visited earlier. Shinko wakes up to the dress and believes that Takuya bought it for her, but he's insistent that, well, he didn't, so neither of them have any idea where it came from. Hitomi calls to tell them that the dude from the boutique died and the dress was stolen. They head to the crime scene and Takuya notices that the person who broke into the store melted through with a high temperature, like a laser beam. It was the beetle! Kabuton is tortured for giving Shinko a present and is told that the only way he can avoid being killed by them is if he goes and finds Professor Shinomura's hideout and kills both him and Spider-Man. While Shinko's at the pool, Kabuton commands his beetles to take the pendant that Takuya bought for her, switching it out with the blue diamond that it was used to power his laser. She meets with the professors, but they're interrupted by Kabuton and Amazonas. She commands Kabuton to kill Shinko, but Spider-Man jumps through the window and begins fighting him off. He takes the battle outside, where Kabuton starts flying and doing this. Amazonas shoots Shinko with her laser gun, but the replacement pendant that Kabuton gave to her earlier absorbs the blast through the power of the blue diamond, leaving her completely unharmed. Kabuton enlarges himself to colossal size, leaving Spider-Man no choice but to call him Marveler and change into Leopardon. Kabuton tries to use his laser beam against him, but without the blue diamond and only Shinko's cheap pendant to power it, the laser emitter begins to burn out. Yeah, Kabuton gets eviscerated. It's actually kind of sad. He's like the only machine BEM so far to show any humanity, but he still gets destroyed in the end. Episode 10 starts with 3 men seeking refuge at the Kitazawa Meteor Research Center, located on Mount Hakuja. They ask to stay the night, but then break in after realizing that a woman lives there. She turns into a snake monster and kills them all. I mean, honestly, that is kind of on you. In the morning, she drives a car with their bodies in it off of a cliff and it explodes. You know, that's a way to open an episode. Takuya is reading about the death of the 3 men at Mount Hakuja in the newspaper. Shinko tells Takuya that their father wrote something in his journal relating to Mount Hakuja that has come to her concern as of recent, given the string of deaths that have been occurring there. Professor Yamashiro wrote that there was a very strong radiation response coming from Mount Hakuja, leaving them unable to search for a meteorite that fell there. However, after the meteorite had been reburied, it had been mysteriously stolen. Shinko goes to Mount Hakuja, being invited inside by Shimako, the woman from earlier, whom she knew as a child. Because she's a snake. They play cards together. I guess Shimako lost real bad because she then blows mysterious fumes out of her mouth and causes Shinko to fall asleep. Yeah, I mean, I tend to do something like that when I lose at card games. When she wakes up, she roams around the house in search of Shimako. She ends up heading down into the basement, which is actually just straight up a cave. She can see smoke, and from that smoke, she finds Shimako, but her face is all snake-like. Give me a kiss. Takuya wakes up from a nightmare about Shinko being bitten by a snake. He opens up his spider bracelet, and with a bit of flashing lights and a bleep bloop, he calls in the the GP7. Amazoness tells Shimako to make Shinko's death look like an accident. She drives the car off the cliff again, but just before it falls over the edge, Spider-Man stops it with his spider net. He grabs Shinko and takes her out of the car. Luckily, she still has time. Amazoness tells Shimako to finish Shinko off, but she resists, forcing her to submit by activating her necklace. Takuya takes Shinko to the hospital, then he cleans his bike up. Toby thinks he's not being a man because he's just cleaning his bike instead of fighting. Takuya, unsuspecting of Shimako's true nature, takes her to see Shinko at the hospital. Professor Monster and Amazoness both laugh at him over the camera. Shinko is busy resting, so Takuya and Shimako leave the hospital. Hitomi brings up to her editor-in-chief, who, is actually Amazoness in disguise, that she'd like to go to Mount Hakuja, citing all the past occurrences as to why. Shimako sneaks into the hospital to kill Shinko, but Spider-Man was waiting for her and had swapped out Shinko with a mannequin. He blasts the snake woman with freezing gas, and then she jumps out the window. Spider-Man reads Shinko's lips. She's trying to say Shimako. He realizes that Shimako is the only other person who knew about the hospital. Could Shimako be the snake woman? He heads to her residence, investigating the basement. He finds a bunch of scientists building a space gun that harnesses the power of the meteorite, and as he explores more of the cave, he finds the bones of Professor Kitazawa. Spider-Man finds Amazoness and Snake Woman. Their second battle ensues. He fights off some foot soldiers, but then gets both of his ankles trapped in chains. Amazoness commands Snake Woman to finish Spider-Man off, but she hesitates, firing off her flamethrower. Yeah, she has a flamethrower all of a sudden, but then pointing it to Spider-Man's chains, freeing him. Not wanting to live as a monster, she sets herself on fire. He escapes, noticing that they are beginning to launch the space gun. He calls in Marveler, firing missiles at it to blow it up. He drives home on his bike, then he sees the ghost of Shimako. He promises to avenge her death. Yeah, this is actually the first episode to not feature Leopardon at all, which is something you're not going to see again for a pretty long time, but you will. So, Japanese Spider-Man also had a movie, which is said to take place between episodes 10 and 11, but don't be confused by it being called a movie. It's still the exact same length as the regular series episodes, being around 23 minutes of runtime. The main difference is that this one is shot in widescreen, and it premiered at the summer 1978 Toei Cartoon Festival. The movie begins with Spider-Man trapped inside of some kind of room, all of the windows shutting at the last second when he tries to escape. A mysterious voice calls out to him, boasting about how Spider-Man has fallen for his trap. Takuya then wakes up. It was another precognitive dream. Shinko and Takuji are in danger, being cornered by what seems to be foot soldiers from the Iron Cross Army. Takuya chases after them, suiting up as Spider-Man. He climbs up the building in hot pursuit, fighting off the foot soldiers until they escape, leaving only a mysterious man in frame, left looking on as Spider-Man from afar. When Takuya gets home, Shinko is nowhere to be found, and the phone won't stop ringing. He picks it up and he's told that Hitomi, Shinko, and Takuji have all been kidnapped, telling Takuya where to meet him, at a room in a hotel. As Spider-Man, he takes the GP7 to the hotel, entering through the window in the hotel room. The window is sealed after he enters, and the man appears, revealing his name to be Mamiya Juzo, from the Interpol Intelligence Department, a secret organization formed to fight against the Iron Cross Army. Hitomi, Shinko, and Takuji weren't kidnapped after all. They're just swimming in a pool. Mamiya figured out that Spider-Man's identity must be linked to the Yamashiro family. I mean, to be honest, he figured out that he was Takuya extremely easily. He pledges to Takuya that he won't let this sensitive information come into the hands of the Iron Cross Army. Freighters carrying oil have been attacked ever since the beginning of this year, attacked by this thing. Shark creature. Mamiya asks Spider-Man for his help, to join forces and fight against the Iron Cross Army as partners. Spider-Man detects that the Iron Cross Army is coming, so he heads out and oh no. They're in the trees. Damn, look at that swing. Yeah, no, they were seriously not messing around with the practical effects and stunts for this show. Hey man, don't go through that. Oh, hey man, no. Spider-Man finds a note telling him to head to the freighter, as specified on the paper, right there. Professor Monster deduces that Mamiya knows the identity of Spider-Man. He tells his army to do whatever it takes to force them to reveal his identity to him. They're expecting Spider-Man at the freighter. A showdown is imminent. Mamiya is in the captivity of the Iron Cross Army, being tortured to reveal Spider-Man's identity. Hey guys! Flying from above, the GP7 drops Spider-Man with a parachute onto the freighter. Or so you thought. It was actually a fake, a doll, a decoy. The real Spider-Man is... accidentally triggers the alarm while sneaking onto the freighter, causing the Iron Cross Army to begin their search for him. Spider-Man is found, but he's such a beast that he just beats everyone effortlessly, and then does some more excruciatingly slow climbing. He even climbs down this pole twice. How do he do that? I love how spider-like he actually is. His movements are so ridiculously charming and silly. He grabs Mamiya and escapes from the freighter on the boat he used to get there. An Iron Cross Army helicopter pursues the two of them, attempting to shoot them down. Spider-Man tells Mamiya to escape, dodging explosions from the helicopter, like like for a long time. Multiple shots of this happening. Eventually, he grabs onto the helicopter. This is actually really cool. Whilst dangling above the ocean, he calls in Marveler, destroying the torpedoes shot by Sea Devil. Sea Devil grows colossal in size, aiming to destroy the industrial complex. Spider-Man takes over the helicopter, piling it above his GP7, which he then jumps into. He summons Leopardon. We got the movie exclusive move, Leopardon Punch. Using Sword Vigor, he destroys the Sea Devil. Mamiya confides his trust in Spider-Man as an ally that he can rely on. Episode 11 starts with a young boy walking over a bridge, placing a letter addressed to Takuya Yamashiro inside a postbox. You might recognize this child as Ichiro Murakami from episode 5, the episode where Takuya shared his blood with him to keep him alive, turning them into brothers. The contents of the letter reveal that he's doing fine at his new orphanage, but as of recently is plagued by the strange feeling that he's being watched. Immediately, Takuya suspects the Iron Cross Army of being behind this. He gets on his bike and heads to visit Ichiro. He experiences a happy reunion with Ichiro, asking him who might be after him. Turns out this kid just straight up fabricated that shit. He made it all up. Takuya's cool though, and he doesn't get angry at kids. Instead of getting mad, he just goes and plays with Ichiro at the beach. Meanwhile, Professor Monster is showcasing his newest weapon against Spider-Man, a powerful poison harnessed from an underwater venomous snake, specifically engineered to kill spiders. Ichiro is abducted by the Iron Cross Army, whilst Takuya awakens to a message from Mamiya, who tells him that he has important info regarding the Iron Cross Army. He tells him that he knows of the blood transfusion between him and Ichiro. Also, Ichiro has been kidnapped. Yeah, they're still very much obsessed with Spider-Man's secret identity, which is something that only develops more strongly from this point forward. So they're hoping to get that information out of Ichiro. They're throwing yogurt on him. Actually, they're freezing him to death until he says who Spider-Man is. But once Spider-Man beats on some enemy guards that aren't the funny foot soldiers we're used to seeing, they are equally, if not more, stupid. Spider-Man finds Ichiro, picking him up to get him out of there. Suddenly, he's attacked by the dreaded clam beast from earlier. He's then impaled by a spear tip laced with Professor Monster's poison. Using his spider strings, he quickly manages to escape, with Ichiro through a window. That was actually unsettling. Don't do that again. Takuya's really not taking the poison specifically made for Takuya very well, being hospitalized in critical condition. He's had surgery performed on him already and has been given an antidote, but it's not looking good. Ichiro asks Mamiya to have his own blood transfused to Takuya. Okay. Takuya wakes up after the procedure, immediately answering a phone call from Mamiya, who tells him that it was due to Ichiro's blood that he was able to survive. Oh, by the way, Ichiro's actually like totally fine. They build up a very somber tone of suspense here, but he's fine. He's being escorted back to Izu right now. But Takuya gets a bad feeling that Ichiro is still in danger, so he heads over to his location as Spider-Man. Amazonas does this to these two guys. Then this thing decides... But it's okay, because Spider-Man swings in and rescues him. Spider-Man swings his way up to the bridge, fights some foot soldiers, and comes face to face with a Omanite. It's called Shinkaio. Alright, that's cool. That's... Okay, cool. It's good to know. Spider-Man effectively says goodbye to Ichiro, who is set to be hidden in a secret location that the Iron Cross Army will never ever be able to track down. They will never see each other ever again. Episode 12 begins with Interpol being infiltrated by two men overseen by Amazonas. This does not go very well for them. They're soon caught and shot, turning into foot soldiers. Takuya and Hitomi are working on a job as photographers in a photo shoot for some models wearing designer clothes. And Takuya keeps making this face. A woman who seems to know the designer Mr. Togo personally gives him some flowers, but he pretty much rejects her and speeds off in his car, downplaying her as just being some fan. Amazonas later approaches her, and it's heavily implied that she is his ex-girlfriend, offering a way to win him back over his new girlfriend, Yutaka Obana, who is a top model. Just, become beautiful, lol. Oh, she really meant it. Okay. After the surgery, Amazonas commands her to go and kill Yutaka Obana. Oh, looks like she's got a mind-controlling chip in her brain. Minako has, like, superhuman abilities now, so she leaps up to Yutaka's window. Me when I get you. What? Maybe she died mysteriously. She was thrown out of a window. Takuya looks at Minako and is like, yep. Sexy lady. Minako just took her place in life. She's Togo's girlfriend now and everything. Takuya is contacted by Mamiya, so he visits him as Spider-Man, where he is introduced to Inspector Kuroki and shown two pictures. One of a man named Gil, who is the head of a crime syndicate known as Menno, and another of a man called Ban, bodyguard to Gil. They're currently visiting Japan, most likely in hopes of acquiring a blacklist of Japanese crime syndicates. Mamiya thinks that they've most likely contacted the Iron Cross Army, so Spider-Man goes looking for them. When he locates them, they're talking to Amazonas, showing her a picture of Inspector Kuroki. Oh, there he is! Come back! Minako's at a photo shoot when suddenly Amazonas appears to tell her that she wants her to kill Inspector Kuroki, threatening her with evidence that she murdered Yutaka, claiming she'll show Togo if she does not listen to her demands. Kuroki's going swimming when suddenly Minako tries to attack him in the locker room. Spider-Man was just in the corner the whole time. She escapes, telling Amazonas that she refuses to take any more orders from her, but she manipulates her more with false promises of a comfortable life in Paris with Mr. Togo. Minako tries to steal the blacklist, but Spider-Man is waiting for her. Again. Spider-Man changes back into Takia after the two separate, telling her that she mustn't work for the Iron Cross Army. They're evil. Didn't ask. The stolen blacklist actually ends up being fake, much to the shock of Amazonas. It was him! Amazonas instructs Minako to kill Spider-Man. Spider-Man swings into Amazonas and destroys the remote that she's using to control Minako, allowing her to regain her sense of control. They attempt to scuttle away and drive off, but whilst clinging to the car, he calls in the GP7 and jumps onto it as it drives by him. Then he shoots the other car down with missiles. As is tradition, he fights off a bunch of foot soldiers, but then out of nowhere, Minako jumps off of a building. Yeah, he does not save her. You know, in some ways, I guess it is a pretty faithful adaptation. The episode concludes with Spider-Man carrying Minako's lifeless body with an uncontrollable, overflowing feeling of rage towards the Iron Cross Army for what they had done to her. In episode 13, Professor Monster is inspecting a chameleon, expressing his desire to turn it into a machine bear. He samples a variety of candidates but decides he doesn't like any of them and that he'll take matters into his own hands and pick one himself. His secret pastime is that he'll go out, drive around in a hearse, and pick a human to turn into a machine bem. Look at this itty bitty wine glass. Suddenly a gang of bikers start causing trouble and taking up space on the road. Professor Monster tells Amazonas to get rid of them. The driver knocks various members off of their bike, which wages war between the bikers and the hearse, so they fight back. Takia is busy gambling when he gets heckled by a group of bikers. They take him outside and continue to push him around. They kind of just beat him up for a while. Don't mistake this for weakness, however. Takia hates violence. In the midst of it all, he notices something's off about the hearse. An old man intervenes, calling out to one of the bikers named Masao by name. It is then revealed to be his father. He asks him to come home and he declines. Later, Takia suits up as Spider-Man and goes searching for the hearse he had seen earlier. When the signal in his spider bracelet disappears, he deduces that the hearse must have gone through the forest. Masao's father, Amano, reveals to Takia that after Masao's mother passed away in a car accident, he turned to being the leader of a bike gang. Takia imparts some wisdom to Amano, which gives him the will to live again. Professor Monster decides that he will use Masao as the basis for his chameleon machine bem. Meanwhile, Takia is moved by his conversation with Amano, looking at a photograph of his late father. He feels guilt for how he acted during the time that his own father was still alive. Shinko and Takaji ask him if everything is okay, which perks him up, prompting him to return to eat with them. In contrast, Amano is eating alone. Oh, hey, never mind guys, Masao is back. To ask for money. Amano angrily tells him to never come back. Later, he stumbles upon Masao being taken away by paramedics, having seemingly been in some kind of road accident. Takia is reading his father's journal when he comes upon a passage that teaches a very familiar message. Remember that as a man, you must always take responsibility for your actions. Okay, well, I mean, you know, it's kind of close. It's like the toxic masculinity version of what Uncle Ben says. Takia is informed of Masao's accident. He promises to Amano that he will find Masao, contacting Interpol to ask them to assist in locating his whereabouts. Amano bumps into and recognizes Amazonas, prompting him to pursue her back to their base of operations, wherein they are in the process of turning Masao into a machine bem. Takia successfully tracks down the hearse and the ambulance used to steal Masao's body, not too far from Amano's current location. While attempting to contact Takia, Amano is sniped by Amazonas. Spider-Man stumbles across Amano's body. He's dead. He goes to retrieve Masao's body, but he's already become a chameleon monster. He encounters the biker monster, telling him that his father was killed by the Iron Cross Army trying to save him. But it's far too late for that. There's no humanity left once turned into a machine bem. Takia lays flowers at Amano's grave. With each passing episode, Takia just finds more and more reasons to hate the Iron Cross Army. Episode 14 starts with Spider-Man driving his GP7, having received information from Interpol about an evil business potentially smuggling contraband into a ship. He's tasked with retrieving the list of imports from the Iron Trade Corporation. Hold on. What? Since when? Since when does Spider-Man have a sonic screwdriver? Using his sensitive sense of smell, he catches onto a similar scent emitted by that of machine bem and Iron Cross Army foot soldiers. Continuing Continuing his infiltration, Spider-Man climbs across the ceiling and over the laser sensors. He takes a painting off of the wall, revealing a hidden safe. After disabling the alarm, he uses his sonic screwdriver to open the safe. Inside of it is yet another hidden compartment, which has an encrypted message on a piece of paper. He snaps a photograph and later presents it to Mamiya, who has managed to encrypt it with the backing of Interpol. Apparently they're shipping a new weapon in the cargo. Takia pledges to keep an eye on the Iron Trade Corporation. In the meantime, Amazonas presents photos of Spider-Man infiltrating the safe to Professor Monster. She expresses her frustration at how easy it would be to take care of Spider-Man if they knew his identity. This giant bat knows how to find out who he is. Problem solved. Wait, he actually does know. Amazonas is not buying it though. They put out a 1 million yen bounty for the identity of Spider-Man, which takes the interest of Hitomi. Her editor-in-chief slips her a reader's suggestion claiming that they believe Takia to be Spider-Man, which she denounces as nonsensical. Amazonas plants seeds of doubt into her mind, reasoning that Takia has a good reason to be Spider-Man since his father was killed by the Iron Cross Army. Takia's just off biking, but his spider sense tells him he's being watched by a bat. Hitomi asks Takia on a date, but they're suddenly circled by a gang of bikers who challenge Takia to a race. He catches on very quickly through the appearance of their eyes that they're modified men, members of the Iron Cross Army. He pulls one of their arms off whilst defending Hitomi, revealing a fully metallic arm. They provoke Takia, trying to make him turn into Spider-Man, but a figure clad in white clothes and sunglasses, who was actually a shape-shifted form of the bat from earlier, comes to his rescue, soloing all of them. This guy is bad news. He smells like Machine Ben. Later that night, Takia has a precognitive nightmare full of bats. He notices a bat with flashing red eyes outside of his window. It's a surveillance bat, so Takia is being watched by someone. Shinko suggests that they go to an amusement park. Bro does not want to be here. Everyone except him goes on the roller coaster. Whilst they're on the roller coaster, a modified man sabotages it, making it unable to stop and placing them in danger. Takia then fights and attempts to regain control over the roller coaster. The same guy from earlier, the one dressed fully in white, beats them all up and stops the roller coaster, then mysteriously walks away without saying a word. Everyone thinks Takia is a complete loser. Amazonas now really isn't buying it. This hurt his feelings so much that he starts mourning at his father's grave. Hitomi comes running to Takia, telling him that Shinko and Takuji have been kidnapped, and if Takia doesn't save them from warehouse number 7 in 1 hour, they will both die. He realizes that he's still being watched by the bat. He has to tread carefully. He looks for a place where he can transform into Spider-Man without giving away his secret identity. He shows up on his bike. No Spider-Man this time, only Takia Yamashiro and his motorcycle. A bunch of henchmen surround him. He realizes the opportunity that he's been given. If he jumps into the water and uses the Spider Bracelet to change into Spider-Man, then they won't suspect him. Spider-Man comes to Shinko and Takuji's rescue soon after Takia ostensibly plunges into the water, fighting off all of the henchmen and releasing them both from their constraints, helping them escape. Big Bat assumes its true form. Okay, you know what's about to happen next. Takia is pulled out of the water, convincing Amazonas that he truly isn't Spider-Man after all. He may be perceived as a weak, helpless coward, but his identity is safe. Episode 15 begins with a child known as Junichi going grocery shopping, when a bunch of rowdy kids, involving Takuji, steal his items from him. This disappoints Takia, who happens to witness the bullying. Takia finds out that the child's father passed away last year, leaving him to become independent so that he may help care for his mother. Later, after getting home, Takia scolds Takuji for being, well, kind of a little. Takuji explains that they were teasing Junichi because he can't play baseball or soccer. Takia explains to Takuji that just because you can play sports, it doesn't define your worth as a person or your personal character. Junichi has a kind heart and prioritizes caring for his mother, even when dealing with having lost his father. This is actually a pretty sweet message. I think it's interesting to see how this show deals with the concept of ableism and addressing how children perceive stuff that is different to them at an early age. I think one of my favorite parts about Takia is that despite how much he might deviate from Peter Parker, he still retains the essential core elements of the character. He's just a genuinely good person. Junichi is doing exercises when suddenly Spider-Man appears to lift his spirits. To inspire him, he does a bunch of acrobatics on a tree. Spider-Man helps him climb up the tree and they appreciate the view from the top. Junichi runs off to tell the other kids that he's friends with Spider-Man and they let out the most freakish laugh I have ever heard. Takuji, clearly influenced by Takia's mentoring, befriends Junichi and tells him that he does believe him. Junichi has a seizure and is then hospitalized. Takia finds out he has a needle-sized hole in his heart and is due to have surgery ASAP. Whilst leaving, Takia writes a note and leaves it wedged in the door. When Shinko and Takuji come to visit, the note falls out and Junichi reads it. He's popping off! Amazonas, whilst undercover, finds out about Spider-Man's friendship with the boy through Hitomi, who wants to write a story about it. On the day of Junichi's surgery, Spider-Man heads towards the hospital. However, his spider bracelet uncovers that there are various disguised foot soldiers peppered around it. Junichi gets very upset because Spider-Man is still yet to arrive before it's time for his surgery. In the meantime, Spider-Man is still trying to sneak around the foot soldiers of the Iron Cross Army. He writes a note and turns it into a paper airplane. It is at this moment that Spider-Man notices a familiar face, figuring out that the editor-in-chief and Amazonas are one in the same. Junichi is taken to undergo surgery, and with the most inconvenient timing possible, Spider-Man's paper airplane note flies through the window the moment he's out of the room. Shinko grabs the note and tries to bring it to Junichi, but the operation has already begun. Shinko tries to speak to Junichi through the door, telling him that Spider-Man will be here after the surgery, but he can't hear her. After Amazonas leaves, since Spider-Man is seemingly a no-show, he calls in the GP7 and cuts her off, revealing that he knows her true identity. He chases after her. Where did this thing come from? What do you mean, unicorn? That is a dinosaur.
Leopardon.
I honestly think this episode is one of my favorites in the whole series. It's very heartwarming and I love how grounded it is. I think it's the exact kind of story you'd expect Spider-Man's best qualities to shine through in, and I feel like it succeeds on that front, for sure. Sorry guys, I'm scared of dogs. We're gonna have to skip this episode. Ricky the dog barks at some oncoming rocks falling down the mountain. In an attempt to get the dog out of the way, the owner ends up falling down the mountain. Takia and his siblings are fishing, when suddenly Ricky the dog comes running through the water, aiming to get Takia to help. They follow the dog, assuming it's trying to tell them something, which then leads them to Ricky's wounded owner, who's called Isamu. That's cool, he's fine. I say he's fine. He's fine! Later that night, they camp out with Ricky and Isamu. When they wake, Ricky's doing cool tricks.
Oh.
That's me when I see a dog do a cool trick. Isamu and Ricky bid farewell to Takia and his siblings, heading back off into the mountains. Ricky barks at some modified men from the Iron Cross Army, which alarms Takia's spider sense, so he suits up and stops them before they can do any harm. Spider-Man asks Isamu why the Iron Cross Army are attacking him, but via flashback we find out that he has been blackmailed into secrecy. His father has been kidnapped by the Iron Cross Army, and if he tells anyone about it, they'll kill his dad. Spider-Man drives him home. The Iron Cross Army have kidnapped Isamu's father because he's the designer of a dam that they want to blow up. So they're trying to force him to tell them where to place the explosives. Basically, they're trying to flood and destroy a nuclear plant, which will then in turn contaminate the water, and then the now contaminated flood will contaminate all of the water in Tokyo. Then they're going to pour gas into and set the sewer lines on fire at the same time. I don't know if it's just me, but this is like kind of a step up from their previous evil schemes, right? They're literally trying to blow up the whole of Tokyo. Most of the time, it's usually just, oh, I hate that Spider-Man. We gotta kill Spider-Man, or I'm gonna turn this dude into a chameleon. And not just, I'm gonna nuke the capital of Japan. Taki is still worried about Isamu, so he visits him the next day, but nobody's home. He goes investigating a little bit, finding out that Isamu's father is the designer of the Kitakanto Dam, the same dam that Isamu was heading towards. He realizes that Isamu must be looking for his father, who has most likely been taken by the Iron Cross Army. Using the GP7, he goes looking for Isamu, worried that the Iron Cross Army might try to attack him again. I know that Ricky's supposed to be helping him up here, but all I can think about is that they just must have stuffed that bag full of like peanut butter or something. Amazonas threatens Isamu's father with the well-being of his son, demanding that he tell her where to put the explosives. Isamu is soon surrounded by a bunch of hard hat wearing goons. Hold on, play that again. After successfully defeating all of them and saving Isamu, Ricky guides Spider-Man to Isamu's father using his sense of smell. Spider-Man successfully sneaks onto the dam, reuniting the two. However, Amazonas shows up and shoots him. Classic tearjerker move, dog takes the shot. Yeah, there's no way he survived that. Ricky is completely unharmed. Also, Spider-Man and Isamu's dad have been tied up to explosives on the dam. Ricky somehow makes it all the way back up to the top of the dam and single-handedly frees them both, even though the slightest movement will apparently detonate the explosives. Okay. He is speaking the language of gods. Isamu reunites with his father, and dude, the dog even finds out that Spider-Man is Takia because of his sunglasses. Episode 17 starts with a pro wrestler named Samson losing a match. His coach, who is also his brother, tries to comfort him after his loss, but he feels incredibly dejected, thinking he has no talent as a pro wrestler. He wants to be strong as Spider-Man. Amazonas overhears Samson stating he wishes he could meet Spider-Man and promises to him that she can make it happen. Ever since Takia found out the identity of the editor-in-chief back in episode 15, she hasn't shown up to work at all, causing Hitomi and everyone else in the workplace to wonder why she just randomly disappeared. Takia tries to tell her that she was a member member of the Iron Cross army, but Hitomi screams and runs away. I don't really know why. Shinko tells Takuya that he's been getting a bunch of phone calls saying bring out Spider-Man. When the phone rings once more, the voice asks Takuya if they can meet, implying that they know Takuya's secret identity. Takuya meets with Samson and his brother, who have been told that Takuya is Spider-Man by Amazonas. While she previously seemed convinced in episode 14 that Takuya really wasn't Spider-Man, after he correctly figured out her identity, she seems to have narrowed it down. Professor Monster doesn't even initially bother to listen to her explanation. Takuya just says, well, I'm not Spider-Man. He's like, I guess he really isn't Spider-Man. Amazonas explains how she put the pieces together, referencing the events of episode 15 and how it all ultimately leads back to Takuya. He concedes, allowing her to continue to survey him. Samson and his brother tell Takuya that the reason they want to meet Spider-Man is because it is both of their dreams for Samson to become a wrestling champion. Takuya is moved by their brotherly love, but he knows he's being watched, so he just leaves. Samson attacks him because he really wants to know Spider-Man's identity. About the Spider Bracelet, Takuya just gets easily downed, convincing Professor Monster even further that he isn't Spider-Man, even though he literally did the pose. Samson's brother praises him for attacking a random stranger. Nice! Professor Monster has his foot soldiers wheel in the fossil of a prehistoric creature that was known for killing many warriors. He says he's going to fulfill Samson's dreams and make him strong, you know, by turning him into a machine bam, obviously. Spider-Man shows up at the wrestling place, wishing to meet Samson, but he's already gone. Amazonas took him, promising him strength if he underwent surgery. Spider-Man finds Amazonas after he almost gets sniped, demanding that she tell him where Samson is. She says that they turned him into a machine bem already. What is that? He doesn't even have a funny monster name. He's just called Samson. Samson runs his brother over with a truck. Spider-Man catches a ride on the back of the truck, calling in the GP7 to shoot it down with missiles, which sends it crashing into the water. He fights off some guys and enters a 1v1 with Samson, who does some wrestling moves on him. Spider-Man tries to tell Samson that he killed his own brother just to become stronger, but, you know, there's no humanity left in him to listen to his words, because machine bem and all. Samson turns into a giant monster. So this is arguably kind of a new one. Whilst Leopardon throughout the entirety of the whole series never sustains any kind of actual damage, let alone visible damage. Unlike with most other machine bems, he actually seems kind of phased by this flail attack from Samson. Maybe Samson will actually give him a run for his money. Episode 18 starts with Takuya almost running this kid over. The boy, known as Rio, later finds and takes a bag lying on the ground, leaving to go find his mother. Unbeknownst to him, he's being watched by Amazonas, who sends a modified man after him. His mother asks him who the bag belongs to. She opens it up and finds a ton of money inside. Quickly, she runs to take it to the police station, but the modified man from earlier steals it from her. Takuya appears just in time, covertly changing into Spider-Man and pursuing him atop the buildings. Later, when talking to the police, Rio's mother tells them all about the money in the bag and the device on the man's neck, but she's taken to the police station because they're finding it hard to believe her story. Takuya can't really wrap his head around why the Iron Cross army would want to steal 5 million yen. Rio reads out a passage about how much he admires his mother. She eventually reveals to him that the money was stolen from her by the Iron Cross army, but even he is skeptical too. It's a pretty small picture for them. Ultimately though, he does choose to believe her. Oh my god, is that Carnivine? Professor Monster asks Amazonas how much trolling she's been doing, to which her answer is basically a lot. Takuya and Shinko read about these incidents in the newspaper over dinner. Naturally, he comes to the conclusion that he always comes to: it's the Iron Cross army. At school, Rio is being bullied over his mother being a thief who took the money, since nobody believes her story. This straight up instigates a witch hunt. Is he still alive? Takaji asks Takuya if Rio's mother is a thief, to which he declines. Hitomi barges in, telling Takuya to come with her on a job to get the witness account of Rio's mother. I missed the part, but that's my problem. Whilst driving the bike, Takuya comes across Rio, who's bruised after what happened. Takuya, why is this the first thing you say to him? Takuya says to Rio that he believes him, but Rio runs away, calling him a liar. He leaves behind the passage that he wrote about his mother, which Takuya reads. Rio goes home to his mother and tells her that he wants to meet Spider-Man. Out of nowhere, a massive delivery package shows up, containing a ton of different expensive items. Despite Rio's mother pleading that she didn't buy any of this stuff, they unpack it anyway, saying it's already paid for. Rio calls his mother a liar, then runs away. Spider-Man places a cute little spider tracking device on the delivery people's truck after discovering that they're actually from the Iron Cross army. He drives after the truck in his GP7 until he's spotted in the rearview mirror by Amazonas. Suddenly, carnivorous plant reveals itself from its camouflage, ensnaring Spider-Man in its vines. Ryu jumps out of the back of the delivery truck, but is quickly caught. It seems like he had snuck aboard. Of course, Spider-Man rescues him. Amazonas calls forth carnivorous plant, which Leopardon wastes no time destroying. Spider-Man drives Ryu home, who has now had his faith in his mother restored. Episode 19 begins with a child standing directly in front of Takuya's bike without even flinching. Oh my god, Takuya, you are on some thin ice with this secret identity thing. Takuya denies it and drives away. When he looks back, the boy has completely disappeared and he can't shake the feeling that he's being watched. All of a sudden, Takuya has a weird vision that looks like Luigi's final smash from Brawl, where his siblings are in danger and calling out for his help. It wasn't real, he was just imagining it. Out of all the excuses Takuya could come up with for breaking the window when his siblings come home, he says he mistook it for the entrance. When he goes into his room, the boy is waiting there for him, and he starts beaming photos out of his eyeballs, where he photoshops Takuya onto a bike into being Spider-Man on a bike. The psychic alien child tells Takuya that he wants him to rescue his sister, who is due to be sacrificed to the monster of his village to satiate its violence. Spider-Man and the alien kid, Shiro, go through a secret passage leading to the village, where Spider-Man is introduced to the village's guardian god. Don't go near it or you'll get cursed. The village is apparently the byproduct of aliens settling on Earth around 20,000 years ago, which reminds Spider-Man of a story his father once told him about a city that used to be at the top of Mount Fuji before it was destroyed by a volcanic eruption. Shiro's sister, Mio, appears and then the guards arrive, surrounding them both. Spider-Man attempts to fight the alien guards, but they do this. Overall, they're kind of a nuisance. They're jumping on him like he's a Goomba. The guards tell Spider-Man that when the beast, known as the Kamenga, is agitated, someone must be chosen by the guardian god to be offered as sacrifice. It is the prophecy. Mio is taken to be imprisoned. Spider-Man tells the kid not to cry because he's going after the guards to save her. Amazonas seems to have a new outfit now. I kinda like it. Spider-Man breaks Mio out of prison, then rescues her grandpa, who is also in prison. Mio's grandfather gets a knife thrown into his back, then dies. The village alarm is sounded and the guardian god alerts all of the residents that a sacrifice must be offered to Kamenga tonight. Mio offers herself up to appease the violence of the villagers. As per the instructions of the guardian god, the villagers try to shoot Spider-Man, but he manages to escape into a safe hiding spot with Shiro, the cave of the guardian god. Inside the cave, Spider-Man finds a scroll detailing the prophecy that was mentioned earlier. The villagers attempt to sacrifice Mio, but Spider-Man stops them by using his spider string and yanking her away from them. Before he's shot by all of the guards, he pulls out the scroll that he found inside the cave. He explains that the ink used to write on the scroll is new. They made it all up. He swings over to the guardian god, revealing that it is literally just a funny shape which broadcasts Professor Monster's voice. He also reveals that Kamenga is actually just a robot being controlled by Araki, the god who keeps conspiring with Amazonas. Kamenga emerges from the water shooting missiles at Spider-Man, commanded by Araki.
西区と東区の間に争いが起こり、ロボット銃を繰り出して戦争になったんです。その結果、
I missed my bike. Spider-Man then falls victim to the ultimate instance of gaslighting. When he wakes up, there is no physical evidence that the village or those people ever existed. Episode 20 starts with a girl looking into a mirror where she foresees that an earthquake will befall the city. 10 days later, the earthquake actually does happen, which captures the attention of Professor Monster and Amazonas. Professor Monster wants to track down the girl to find out the future of the Iron Cross army. Hitomi is taking pictures of Takuya for his resume because he wants to get a job as a tutor. He later meets with Yoko. Don't ask why he has injuries. Please. She quizzes him on a bunch of stuff and he passes her test. Her parents ask Takuya to primarily teach her math. He has no idea what any of this stuff means. So the real reason that Yoko chose Takuya as her tutor is because she thought he might have skill as a detective to help her find out if she's adopted. She explains why she believes that she was given up to her current parents when she was a baby. No baby photos, they don't look alike at all, etc. Amazonas breaks into Yoko's and kidnaps her, then tries to run over Takuya. As Spider-Man, he follows after them in the GP7. He forces open the car doors with his spider strings, rescuing Yoko and bringing her back to her parents. She decides now is a good time to ask them if she's really their child. They bicker. Her dad says that she really is her real daughter, but she says she doesn't want a father who can't rescue her. Hitomi, Shinko, and Takaji go looking for Takuya at Yoko's residence, but they're told that he's already been let go. They just assume Takuya isn't coming home because he's embarrassed that he already got fired. In reality, Spider-Man is guarding Yoko's house. Yoko receives a letter which states that if she really wants to know about her real parents, she has to head to the address on the letter. She leaves her house and gets a taxi, tailed by Spider-Man in his GP7. When she arrives at the building, she's greeted by Machine Bem and Amazonas. She tells Yoko to predict the future of the Iron Cross army. Real quick, how did they even know about her precognitive abilities in the first place? She was looking into a mirror in her own bedroom. Why did they have a camera in there? She refuses and is about to be attacked by the Machine Bem when Spider-Man leaps through the window. Oh, he's picking him up. breaks the news to Yoko's parents that she actually can see into the future, but they insist that she's just an ordinary girl. Tries to get them to tell him the truth. Amazonas is kind of shoving a mirror into her face going, tell me. Professor Monster is starting to have his doubts. Spider-Man warns Yoko's parents that if they really are mistaken and they have no use for her, then her life is in danger. What do you know? She's not their real kid. Amazonas finds out there was a girl named Mitsuko who looked identical to Yoko, but she passed away a month ago and Yoko was found as a baby without any parents. This really annoys Amazonas, who takes out all of her anger on Yoko. She also rolls this priest down a hill. Amazonas tries to shoot Yoko, but her father body blocks the shot. Spider-Man is busy fighting off the Machine Ben, but quickly traps him in his spider net and stops Amazonas from shooting anyone else. Machine Ben, primitive man. Spider-Man watches on as Yoko reunites with her family. Quick intermission. We're about halfway through the series now. How exciting. Just keep in mind that he doesn't just appear in this show, but also he appears in the Spider-Verse comics. And get this, Leopardon appears in the book Ready Player One. Yeah, I'm going to be having a little look-see at that. We'll look at some lines of prose. Anyway, episode 21 begins with soldiers running through a forest and Spider-Man on the cross. The soldiers shoot him. Oh. Jesus Christ, it isn't the real one. It's a training dummy for the Iron Cross Army. They're training a group of so-called spider killers to defeat Spider-Man. Unbeknownst to them, they're being watched by an investigator from Interpol. He opens up a little doohickey and begins transmitting a message to Interpol regarding the location of the Iron Cross Army's training base, but is spotted by Amazonas and is pursued by the spider killer soldiers. Taki is at an art museum. Check that out. It's painted by this guy, who has his photo taken by Hitomi. The boy is going overseas with his painting for it to be displayed at an exhibition in America. I bet your mother is very happy. Hitomi, whatever you do, don't ask about his father. Oh my god. Oh my. Takia stares at this photo of the investigator and just kinda, I don't know, gets a gut feeling that something's up. He contacts Interpol soon after, being told that he has to rescue Investigator Suda, who is being chased after by the Iron Cross Army. So he begins infiltrating the base by climbing across this bridge, very slowly. You know, they haven't caught him yet. It's kind of impressive he's not only able to run that fast, but that Spider-Man is already here before he's been caught. Amazonas comes face to face with the investigator and asks if he revealed the location of their base. He refuses to answer, so she tells her soldiers to kill him. No, they're crucifying him. They're putting him on the cross. She shows him a photo of Mamiya, his boss, asking him where he is. This man is not budging, even though he has a kid at home. Santa Buffalo is shooting it. Oh, he missed. He completely missed. Come on. You just shot at the ground. Is Spider-Man even throwing here? Invisible flashbangs. He manages to sneak him out of there like he just used the world. Suda gets his leg injured, but Spider-Man carries him into the woods and patches him up. Suda tells Spider-Man to leave him behind and to tell Interpol that he successfully avenged his wife. Turns out the Iron Cross Army were responsible for killing his wife. Ever since then, he's been searching for their base for an entire year. Spider-Man, a man of vengeance himself, respects him for this. Suda shows him a picture of his only child. Oh, it's the boy with the painting. He's dumbfounded. He is flabbergasted. He's jaw-dropped. Spider-Man tells him that he met his son, like literally earlier today. Suda tells him his name is Hisao and that he's heading to America because his painting was selected for the United Nations Youth Art Competition. Suda, wanting to see the painting and his son, is driven by determination to stay alive. The Spider Killers appear once more, so Spider-Man just slaps this guy. So this guy just jumps into the water, completely unprompted by anything. I guess he's supposed to be getting knocked in there. It's just funny how it looks like he dives in there of his own volition. I truthfully have no idea how they haven't managed to catch either of these two by now. One of them literally has an injured leg. Not only are they getting chased by a ton of highly trained super soldiers, specifically trained to kill Spider-Man, there is a helicopter above them trying to shoot them down. And they start trying to blow him up. Wait, hold on. This looks very, very familiar. Is this just reused footage from the movie? Yes, it is. This is basically the entire helicopter sequence from the movie just pasted into this episode with a few new scenes peppered in. He takes over the helicopter and starts flying it. I mean, I guess if he just intuitively knew how to fly Marveler and pilot Leopardon, he would know how to fly a helicopter too. Suda falls over, so the helicopter plan falls flat, probably because they couldn't really afford to film another helicopter scene. Spider-Man notices a train and hobbles towards it with Suda. They both hop onto it. I mean, okay, maybe this wasn't a great idea. The dude is injured, specifically has an injured leg. He manages to make it up regardless, so the two of them chill in one of the carriages. The foot soldiers jump aboard the train in hot pursuit of them both. Of course, I mean, what would a piece of Spider-Man media be without a train fight? Spider-Man beats on the foot soldiers, hitting them off of the train and onto the tracks. He does some funky spinning moves and a WWE finisher from the top rope. Suda promises not to die without seeing his cell. The train is then inexplicably stopped by Tanto Buffalo. Let the dude see his kid! Calls in Leopardon, immediately going straight for Sword Vigor. Spider-Man and Suda just barely reach the plane as it's beginning to take off, but they're too late. The plane flies away, and Suda, desperately trying to hold on, unfortunately passes away, watching his departure. There's no happy ending here, but there rarely is when Spider-Man is involved, regardless of how silly the incarnation might sometimes seem. Episode 22 starts with Professor Monster losing it. Hold on, how have I never noticed this before? Look at his funny little jester shoes. Amazonas rushes in and he begs for blood. What he's already been transfused isn't enough, and he needs more. It's Skeleton! Amazonas demands that Skeleton Beast retrieve live human blood to revive Professor Monster. I suppose he's just getting really old, and he constantly needs fresh blood pumped into him. This is some new lore for Professor Monster. Not the blood thing, I'm talking about his jester shoes. Takia checks up on Hitomi, who's photographing a crime scene. She tells him that a vampire who sucks out people's blood has appeared. Oh yeah, that's the Iron Cross Army right there. This skeleton jump scare would then plague the nation, crashing many cars. Takia tries to contact Interpol, but they're absolutely no help to him. They don't know how to track down skeletons. Shinko is about to go out for a drive. When have you ever used a car before now? Why would you use a car now? That car-related incidents are suspiciously occurring every night in your area. Unsure of where to find the culprit, Takia just drives around on his bike aimlessly. This sends Takia flying and knocks him unconscious as he was right behind the car that got skeletoned. When he comes to, he catches a clear view of the Iron Cross Army taking the victim's body. Ow, my head hurted. They managed to get away with the victim. Also, there's a little girl inside the van, probably due to be used to give blood to Professor Monster, into the van dimension. Don't get the wrong idea, this skeleton minion has had a moment of empathy and is rescuing her. He lets her go and then he drives away. The next morning, Takia has heard from Interpol about the girl in question, who had been abducted but had managed to escape, so he goes to visit her in the hospital. The car crash caused by the skeleton jump scare blinded her, and then her father just kind of mysteriously disappeared. But he's been sending money over, it's just that no one knows where he went off to. Oh, I wonder who this skeleton guy is. Takia asks the girl if she'd be able to locate where she was taken to which she responds that she would. Spider-Man drives her through the city with her guiding him towards their base using audio cues. Once they arrive, Spider-Man begins his stealthy infiltration. The skeleton guy is being pressed as to why he released the girl. Summoned Skull from Yu-Gi-Oh! Has put 2 and 2 together. The skeleton guy is the girl's father. Amazonas whips him, but is stopped by Professor Monster, who has made a full recovery due to the blood that has been provided to him by the skeleton beast. Now he can live another 400 years. Spider-Man lets out a slight bit of noise, and Professor Monster just laser eyes him. Spider-Man encounters the skeleton guy, who initiates an attack, but he hesitates once Spider-Man shows him a photo of him and his daughter, which he had asked Hitomi to locate and retrieve earlier. He pleads to his humanity, to Keiichi Otaki, the man behind the skeleton mask. Once he hears the voice of his daughter, Jun Otaki, he attempts to reunite with her, but she's grabbed by Amazonas and held hostage. She orders Keiichi, my mistake, he was called White-Robed Beast before this, to kill Spider-Man, but he revolts and throws a knife at her. Keiichi is immediately murdered by Skeleton Beast after doing so. Before he passes away, he says his daughter's name and then tears seep through the eye holes of his skull. Parent-child tragedy is it's a real staple of this series. Gets some skulls thrown at him by Skeleton Beast. Yeah. Jun asks Spider-Man where her father is, and he tells her that he's gone far away on a journey, and that she'll be able to see him when she can see again. He despised that he had to lie to her, but he felt he could never tell her the truth. I really like this scene just because it's the wrong thing to say in that situation, to fill her with false hope. But Takia is made much more human by the reactions he has to the tragedy that occurs around him. He just tries to do his best, and he doesn't always succeed. Episode 23 begins with Takia play wrestling a bunch of kids at a place called Big Sky Academy. The Yamashiro family is particularly close to the school since Shinko knows the headmistress. That's why they're just casually doing this. Some random dude named Goro in a pinstripe suit pulls up and starts giving every single child a present, as well as the headmistress. The gift she receives is a very expensive ring. He starts flaunting all of these promises and glamorous things he'll do with his money for her in the school next, and she seems a little bit confused. Takia's like, who is this? So he used to go to the academy, and he was completely broke the last time she saw him, which was only a month ago. All of a sudden, sudden, he's so rich, he's throwing money everywhere, he's driving a nice car, nice suit, the whole shebang. When they get home, Hitomi is inspecting and trying on a bunch of jewelry, which was gifted to her by an old classmate she knew at photography school. She mentions that recently he wasn't in a great financial situation either, resorting to selling his belongings to get by. So Taki is starting to suspect that something's up. Later that night, he drives out on his bike to investigate, tailing Goro to a club called the House of the Sorceress. Spider-Man notes that these clubs have been appearing all over the place as of recently. Inside the club, we find that it's more of a casino. People are betting on a bunch of different small animals racing each other, such as rabbits and what seems to be some chicks. There's a hideous beast. Spider Battle Royale? I'm not showing this footage because it's kind of nasty. Basically, it's a bunch of spiders fighting each other as they watch, and they bet on which one's going to win. Also, there's another scene where they hold up the rabbits to announce the winners, but I don't really like how they handle them, so I'm not going to show that either. So here's a shot of this guy's funny face through the glass instead. Spider-Man's crawling through the vents to get a look inside when he deciphers that almost all of the employees running the casino are from the Iron Cross Army, and that this hideous beast is a machine Bem. He tries to work his way through the door, but he's attacked. Suddenly, this mysterious fog arises out of nowhere. He maneuvers through it, but his spider sense isn't working at all. The machine Bem shows up and starts just shooting him. He manages to get away, and also the machine Bem is called Sorceress Beast. Effectively, she's running these clubs which procure and exploit a gambling addiction in young, vulnerable men without a lot of money. They purposefully let them win to give them this huge dopamine rush and keep them continually coming back. Spider-Man crawls out of a manhole to find that the fog from earlier is now gone. Was he in there the entire night? Bro stinks. Bro stinky. He notices Goro, who looks completely miserable. He tells him that he knows that he's been gambling at the casino and that he lost, not by chance, but because the whole thing is rigged and ran by the Iron Cross Army. Goro doesn't care, he won all of the money, so he'll win it back. He asks Spider-Man to lend him some money. You are asking the wrong guy. Spider-Man heads back to the casino, sneaking his way inside, but it's completely empty. Making sure he isn't seen by anyone, Goro makes his way into Big Sky Academy, taking some mysterious documents and stuffing them into his jacket pocket. Back at the casino, they're once again running their little scheme and rigging the game. Sorceress Beast gives her energy to the little chick to help it win the race. Goro loses yet again on the chick race because, well, it's rigged, stupid. When Misato returns to Big Sky Academy, there are a bunch of guys in suits vandalizing the place and taking out documents. It turns out Goro stole the deed to the school earlier and bet the entire place whilst at the casino since he had no money left to bet with. Takia tries to interfere, realizing that these men are with the Iron Cross Army. They're modified men. Misato pleads with them to think of the children, but they push her to the ground. Takia then steps in to defend her and is told by Shinko that he has to do something. But he can't reveal his secret identity, so he gets punched in the face by this dude. I mean, okay, Shinko calls him pathetic, but this man did not flinch or recoil. He stood there, he took it like a champ. Goro was watching the whole time. He's spotted just before he runs away, and he's chased by Takia and some kid who calls him stupid. Now dressed as Spider-Man, he continues to pursue Goro from atop some buildings. Goro heads back to the casino to beg for his stuff back, specifically the deed for the school, but it's completely gone. He knows where he can find the location though. He contacts a friend known as EG that he knows who goes to the casino, who has lost literally everything he owns, asking him where the casino is now. He goes to the last place that EG went to, but it's not there. Goro gets shot by a member of the Iron Cross Army, and Spider-Man runs over to him trying to help. He tells Spider-Man that he's always looked at the kids as his brothers and sisters and he wanted to do right by them as a big brother would. Spider-Man understands what he means and he tells him to let him handle it. He notices a manhole cover slightly askew and then he concludes that they must be using the underground passages to move around without being noticed. So he heads into the sewers and detects something with his spider sense. He's successfully tracked down the Iron Cross Army. Oh, hold on just a moment, just gonna shimmy over a little bit. He skirmishes with all of the Iron Cross Army dudes, and then he beats on some foot soldiers whilst running after Sorceress Beast. Eventually she turns huge, and prepare yourself, you're not going to believe what happens next. So Spider-Man calls in Marveler and fires off his cannons at Sorceress Beast. However, instead of her brushing it off like literally every single machine Bem before her, only for Spider-Man to then call in Leopardon to finish the job, this actually destroys her completely. This makes her by far the weakest machine Bem that we've encountered in the series so far. And this is also the first time that Spider-Man has fought a giant machine Bem without Leopardon. Episode 24 begins with a boy crying out for his father whilst on top of a train. His father doesn't respond, so he crawls under the train and opens a box full of cockroaches. This little delinquent starts going around the store placing his cockroaches on people, including Shinko. Cockroach. Takia locates the kid and he asks him why he pulled that devious little prank of his. He says, I love cockroaches. I don't care if I go to jail. And he runs away. The Great Battle of the Cockroach Boy. Back at home, Shinko's going on about how much she hates cockroaches. Takuji tells him that everyone at school calls the boy Cockroach Kid, and that no one likes him. They go outside to see that Hitomi has been cockroached as well. Then both she and Shinko faint. Now you crossed the line, Cockroach Kid, you loser. The Cockroach Boy was a sad sight to behold. Spider-Man peeks through Cockroach Boy's window at his home, to which we then find out that he lives alone with his mother, and that his father has just completely left the two of them. His mother also has a bad heart condition. Cockroach Boy goes off to get dinner, just some bread crusts since they have practically no money. Some kid from his school starts bullying him with the goofiest laugh you've ever heard. And Cockroach Boy does not like this, so he starts forcing a cockroach into his mouth. He runs off and starts screaming for his father, but he still doesn't come back. Then Spider-Man just kind of flippity flips out of nowhere and sits in front of Cockroach Boy, handing him some money. You know, I wish Spider-Man would just appear in front of me and hand me some money, but we aren't always lucky as a Cockroach Boy. He wants no part of it, however, he's no beggar, and he won't accept charity, even from Spider-Man. He doesn't care if everyone likes Spider-Man, because he only likes cockroaches. He just starts ripping into his outfit. Spider-Man says he'll find his father for him. He tells him that his father was a guarantor, and that a friend of his father borrowed money from somebody. So he was the guarantor of this loan, and then his friend completely disappeared, leaving him as the only person left to pay up. He lost his house, and he was also abducted for literal slave labor, basically, to make up for the money that he can't pay back in full. Spider-Man asks the boy where his father worked. It turns out he was a security guard at Interpol. He promises to find his father, specifically that he'll bring him to the overpass of the bridge at noon tomorrow. Don't forget your bread crusts. Takuya visits the loan company that literally abducted the father of the Cockroach Boy, then tries to take out a loan of 100,000 yen for his motorbike, but they decline. Amazoness looks at Takuya like, this dude again? Must be a coincidence. He comes back later as Spider-Man because he thinks there's something real suspicious about the loan company. Whilst this is happening, Cockroach Boy is just chilling on the bridge waiting for him, but he's getting impatient, so he decides to go and sneak into the loan company himself. He busts into the loan company and threatens to make them all eat cockroaches. They restrain him, so Spider-Man leaps into action, breaking through the window. But by the time he gets there, they've already gone, driving away in a car. Using the GP7, he follows them to their hideout. Amazonas informs Professor Monster that the poison gas they've been developing is now complete, so they can wipe out everyone at Interpol. In the sewers, foot soldiers are escorting a bunch of prisoners, including Cockroach Boy's father. He notices him and calls out for him, but he's silenced by the foot soldiers. Using his son to blackmail him, Amazonas forces him to tell her the location of the ventilation ducts at Interpol, so they can use the poison gas on everyone there. He refuses, but she summons the dreaded cockroach machine. Are you serious? Do you have to morally justify to a machine bem why they're killing people? When have you ever had to do it before? They're machine bems. There's no humanity left. I thought that was the point. Amazonas tells him that if he doesn't give up the info, his son is next. So they start bringing him to Cockroach Machine. Whilst this is all going on, Spider-Man is sneaking his way through the sewers in his own special way. Cockroach Machine starts poisoning Cockroach Boy, but his father still won't give up the info. Spider-Man swoops out from above, kicking Cockroach Machine away and swinging away with Cockroach Boy and his father, successfully getting them to safety. He heads back to finish the job. You know, he smacks around some foot soldiers, boom, climbs up a building, boom, comes face to face with Cockroach Machine, who starts pelting him with poison gas. He goes overkill, turning giant, and then pelting him with even more gas. But the poison gas doesn't really do anything to him, so you know. Cockroach Boy returns home with his father, and his family is now reunited thanks to Spider-Man. Why does he wave like an NPC? Episode 25 starts off with a flashback. It's a rainy, stormy night at the Ancient Egypt Treasure Museum. A mysterious, shadowy figure is breaking in and stealing a precious artifact, the Star of Egypt. The next morning at the Nakayama household, a young boy called Nobuyuki is getting ready for school. He lives with his grandfather and they have a dog named John, okay? His grandpa is a taxi driver. Whilst on the job, he picks up Amazonas, who accuses him of being Phantom number 107. He stops the car and demands Amazonas tell him who she is. She says that she wants something from him, the Star of Egypt. She kidnaps him and tortures him to get the location of the Star of Egypt out of him and to get him to admit that he truly is Phantom number 107. Professor Monster finds this random crab and is like, hey, this would make a great machine bem. Yeah, he escapes. They only had like one singular foot soldier watching this guy. The crab machine bem makes its appearance after he escapes from the facility, spraying him with a foam. I don't know what it is, but it's painful, apparently. I know he's supposed to be a crab, but he kind of looks more like a durian. Jimmy survived that. How? You're telling me they only had one foot soldier watching this guy? He just survived a fall with nothing but scratches and a limp. He's caught by the Iron Cross Army, but he refuses to give up the Star of Egypt. He stole it for his family so that his grandson could live an easier life. Then he dies. Ignore what I said about only suffering a scratch and a limp. He died. In an attempt to find the Star of Egypt, now that her main lead just died, Amazonas infiltrates his household and interrogates Nobuyuki. Spider-Man leaps through the window and beats on all of the Iron Cross Army's foot soldiers, forcing Amazonas to retreat. Nobuyuki talks to Spider-Man about the Star of Egypt. Of course, he had no idea that his grandpa had such a treasure. The first time he met his grandfather was only 5 years ago, who took him in his care after his mother died. Takia then contacts Interpol, telling him to be on the lookout for the Star of Egypt, to protect Nobuyuki and to look for his grandfather. Takia drives his bike up a hill and watches over Nobuyuki to ensure his safety himself. He's so dedicated to watching Nobuyuki that he calls for Shinko to bring him supplies, including food and a sleeping bag to camp out there, under the guise of doing special training. Professor Monster reveals that he's been storing Nakayami's dead body as well as some kind of blank mold of a human. He combines the two, which creates a body double of Nakayama. Using this body double, he intends to lure out Nobuyuki, who is unaware of his fate. Takia's spider sense goes off. He knows that Nobuyuki is in danger. Nobuyuki then asks John the dog for a favor, entrusting a note to him. He gets a taxi to go meet his grandfather, and John starts to chase after it. In the process of going after Nobuyuki in his GP7 as well, he finds John, who is holding a note written for him, detailing where Nobuyuki is going, the Aramine coast. Nobuyuki arrives, and from his perspective, he reunites with his grandfather. The body double of Nakayama starts trying to pry information about the Star of Egypt from him, talking of a precious treasure. For his last birthday, Nobuyuki recalls that he gave him a map showing the location of the Star of Egypt. He gives the amulet to his grandfather, but Amazonas snatches it away from him, and the body double collapses and reverts to its previous form. The amount of trauma that this kid just experienced in like 5 seconds is unbelievable. He fights off the crab machine Bem and uses his spider strings to yoink the map back from Amazonas. He then destroys it completely by throwing it into the crab's phone. It grows in size and reveals that its name is actually Ganima. Ultimately, nobody was able to find where the Star of Egypt was hidden. Nobuyuki asks Spider-Man why his grandfather was killed by the Iron Cross Army, but he can't bring himself to answer it truthfully. He tells him that the Iron Cross Army mistakenly thought that his grandfather had stolen a treasure, and that he was nothing but an honest, hard-working, upstanding man, but that he must grow up to be a fine man too. They look into the sunset as the episode ends. Episode 26 begins with a man bumping into some innocent dude, making him drop all of his noodles. Then he punches him in the face. Of course, he's a modified man from the Iron Cross Army, because that is not normal behavior. Noodle Boy is in his class, sitting all by himself. He's had enough. He's had enough. We find out his name is Junichi, who receives a phone call from Amazonas, who promises an opportunity, a miracle that will let him move past his current miserable life. He deliberates for a while, but ultimately heads to the location given. Once he arrives, there's a bunch of dead people. Almost instantly after he gets there, the police arrive, having been tipped off by an anonymous phone call. And he's the only person there. All the dead people are modified men from the Iron Cross Army, so they come to the conclusion that he must have defeated them all. Everyone believes him to be Spider-Man, taking photos of him and circling around him. Otomi rushes in and claims to have the news of the century. They finally found the identity of Spider-Man. Takia hears this as he's coming down the stairs. He's like, oh no. But when he hears more, he realizes that there's been a big misunderstanding. He asks Otomi how they know that Junichi is Spider-Man. Whilst riding his bike with Otomi, Takia thinks of how the Iron Cross Army is most likely behind all of this. He leaves Otomi behind and begins his investigation. Amazonas tells Junichi that it's all a setup, of course, and that from this point on, he is Spider-Man to the public eye. He's a hero to everyone. He'll live in a deluxe hotel, be loved, even gets a little sports car. Spider-Man climbs up to the hotel building, but it's been covered in oil. They've been anticipating him. However, Spider-Man is a bit more resourceful than to be defeated by some slippery oil.
後のことは全て私が引き受けるわ。
So he makes his way inside the hotel and chases Amazonas, fighting foot soldiers as he maneuvers through the hallways. He manages to beat them all, reaching and talking to Junichi, trying to warn him of Amazonas' manipulation. Realizing that he's just being used as a tool of the Iron Cross Army, he tries to escape, but Amazonas threatens to slaughter his entire family and to kill him too if he does. Junichi tries to use the phone to call his girlfriend. In the meantime, he's becoming a superstar. This is all according to plan, because now that they've convinced everyone that Junichi is Spider-Man, they can get him cancelled, involving him in dirty scandals. Don't ask me how Volcano Beast fits into this plan. Professor Monster he loves his machine Bems. He just kind of wants him to be involved. Junichi's girlfriend, Yoko, arrives at the hotel and expresses her disbelief at the fact that he's Spider-Man. Somehow she comes to the perfect conclusion. You know, are you being used by the Iron Cross Army? Yeah? He's like, no, not at all, and can't tell her the truth, so she leaves in protest. Then she gets kidnapped by Amazones, but Spider-Man was on the lookout, so he calls in the GP7 and chases after them, jumping onto the car. He manages to get Yoko out of the car, but Amazones drives away. He tells Yoko that Junichi really is being manipulated by the Iron Cross Army, and that no, he is obviously not Spider-Man. Junichi takes his sports car, heads to a club, gets some papaya juice, and passes out after his drink is spiked. He then gets framed for doing this. The next morning, everyone's talking about how Spider-Man did a hit and run and Junichi is being implicated in the crime by authorities. He gets put into a car to be taken away, which is then carjacked by a bunch of guys from the Iron Cross Army. When Amazones opens up the car to retrieve Junichi, she finds Spider-Man trying to sleep. I didn't know he was chill like that. He explains that there was just one key flaw in her plan. He swapped places with Junichi midway. How, you ask? Well, when the car stopped at a red light, he came up from a manhole cover, punched a hole into the bottom of the car, beat everyone up, put Junichi into the sewers, and they just chilled there. This guy, dude. This guy. Amazones tries to make her escape, but Spider-Man uses the GP7 to tail her. Then Volcano Beast makes his long-awaited appearance. Junichi overcomes the Spider-Man allegations and returns to his normal life. Episode 27 starts with Professor Monster and Amazones observing an intense training regimen involving dogs, honing their instincts. They're also developing their own version of a spider extract, using the poisonous spiders that lurked inside of Garria's cave. He recalls the origin of Spider-Man. The spiders present in that cave possess the same scent as Spider-Man does, since he was there at the time. You know, I'm not too sure of the logistics of that, since I'm pretty sure it's been quite a while since that has happened, but you know, whatever. If he says they have the same scent, they have the same scent. Professor Monster intends to make the dogs learn the scent of the extract and then to hunt down Spider-Man, where he will finally find out his true identity. He tells Amazones to find him more cool and clever dogs that he can use to track his scent with. So they steal this kid's dog, Jun, saying he might have rabies and that they need to check on him. Takia happens to see the boy, Kazuo, sprinting after his dog, later asking him for further details about what happened. In the meantime, Amazones teaches the dog Spider-Man's scent, and it seems to work as it invokes an aggressive response towards one of the foot soldiers who's been robbed with Spider-Man's scent for testing purposes. She later calls Hitomi, who immediately recognizes her as her previous editor-in-chief, but she asserts her true identity as being Amazones of the Iron Cross Army. She tells her to pass the threat along to Spider-Man, that the Iron Cross Army is going to bomb Interpol. What's he doing? He's upside down. Takia just tells Hitomi to ignore the phone call. Also, Hitomi just rips into this dog for no reason, calling it filthy, but it turns out the dog is actually owned by Takuji and that he named it Takia. Why? Why did he name it Takia? Now there's two. Human Takia contacts Interpol ASAP to warn them about the phone call that Hitomi received. Professor Monster tells Amazones that there's absolutely no way that Takia Yamashiro is Spider-Man. So Takia Yamashiro suits up as Spider-Man and heads out to stop the Iron Cross Army before they can begin their terror campaign. But he's tracked down by one of the dogs who continuously barks at him until he's noticed and shot at. Using his dexterity, he manages to evade the bullets, but the gunfire is coming from all angles and he's still being chased by a dog. He climbs up a tree, swings away from the dog and only barely gets away and manages to change back into Takia. Then he gets jump scared by Takia, the other Takia, the dog. The Iron Cross Army begin their plans to blow up an entire theme park. In the meantime, Spider-Man sets up a trap for the dog. Is that a bear trap? Spider-Man tries to lure the dog into the bear trap, but this child sets it off using a stick, saving its life. Child tells Spider-Man not to kill the dog. Is it playing dead? Did he get shot? It definitely didn't get hit by the bear trap. The gunman returns, shooting Spider-Man in the arm. He warns the child to get down and begins to roll and dodge his way out of the line of fire, using his spider strings to disarm when possible. Spider-Man gets to safety with the young boy and the dog and is moved by his affection for it. Oh, so the dog hadn't been fed in like a week and it collapsed due to a lack of energy. Even just beyond the fact that that's totally unethical, it's not even practical. If you want your military trained dog to hunt down Spider-Man, how is it going to do that if you don't feed it? Spider-Man gets some milk and some food for the dog. Having now befriended the dog, Spider-Man figures that it could lead them to the Iron Cross Army, so they follow it all the way to the amusement park, where they're in the midst of preparing to bomb the place. Despite his injuries, the dog tries to show them exactly where the Iron Cross Army is. Since the dog doesn't actually look injured whatsoever, I think this scene is pretty funny. It's just Spider-Man screaming at a dog, "No! Stop it!" when it's just walking. Hearing a noise coming from the amusement park, he leaves the dog in the hands of the boy and uses his spider strings to steal the remote out of Amazones' hands. What do you mean a man moved by the love for animals? You tried to kill that dog like less than 5 minutes ago. There's actually no Machine Bem in this episode. He stops the Iron Cross army, makes sure all of the dogs are released from their captivity, and he bids farewell to the dog who helped him. Episode 28 begins with a bunch of schoolgirls asking a group of schoolboys why they won't let them join the detective club. Supposedly they lack the badges, which indicate self-awareness. So they push some gender norms on them, and then the girls retaliate by saying they'll definitely find their secret cave where they hold their club. They witness Amazoness arriving, who then sends a bunch of foot soldiers to go and capture them. One of the boys notices them being taken and informs the others. Amazoness brings them back to the Iron Cross Army's base and locks them away. The next day, they're still missing, so the 3 boys from the detective club start investigating. Amazoness, master of disguise that she is, arrives dressed like police, and then they all get hit with slingshots by the 3 boys, who reveal them as being part of the Iron Cross Army. They then threaten all the other parents in the neighborhood with killing their children if they say anything and choose not to turn a blind eye. Takuya and Hitomi are touring a bunch of places, including this place. Hitomi's taking pictures of a strange gravestone, and the 3 boys thinks that's pretty suspicious, so they assume they're part of the Iron Cross Army and they attempt to follow them. Takuya and Hitomi go to a restaurant and order some spaghetti and coffee. The 3 boys bust into the restaurant and accuse them of being with the Iron Cross Army and of kidnapping Nobuko and her friends. They check Takuya's hand to see if he's a modified man, but no dice. Suddenly an earthquake starts trembling the ground and the clock's hand starts spinning. Then the forks and other cutlery start floating in the air. What is going on? Super Mario! It's Super Mario! It's Super Mario! They're ushered to leave, so they hop back on their bike, but it's not working. It's completely broken down. Toby just straight up leaves and then they slingshot Takuya. He's having a pretty horrible day. I mean, he just wanted some spaghetti. Regardless, he suits up into Spider-Man since he has a bad feeling about the fact that the 3 boys mention the Iron Cross Army. He goes looking around the neighborhood and asks Super Mario what's been going on. At the mention of the name Iron Cross Army, he's startled and acts very skittish. Spider-Man continues to snoop around the neighborhood, coming to the conclusion that the children had been taken by the Iron Cross Army. His spider sense flares up. The 3 boys are being chased by foot soldiers. Wasting no time, he heads to their rescue and uses spider strings on every single foot soldier at once, yoinking them to the ground. The Youth Detective Club offers their help to Spider-Man, which he accepts. He asks for a debriefing on what happened, so they tell him all about the kidnapping. Spider-Man tells them to gather the children's parents, so they head off to do just that, whilst he continues his own mission of tracking them down and rescuing them. Professor Monster is preparing a monster called the Magni Catfish, which has been the cause of all the sporadic earthquakes. They wish to harness its power further to generate a major earthquake and cause social instability. Once all the parents are gathered, Spider-Man tells them that the Iron Cross Army won't release them and will most certainly kill their children. Dude, you're not easing their worries at all. He promises to rescue all of the children, and so they should leave it to him. He finds some Amazoness hair near the strange gravestone, discovering a secret button, which, if I'm being honest, is not very conspicuously placed, leading to an underground base. He sneaks inside, staying out of sight of the foot soldiers and watching on from atop the ceiling as Amazoness details her exact plans to the kids, to cause a great earthquake and bury them all alive. I think we can kind of agree at this point that Amazoness has always really been the main villain, rather than Professor Monster. At least it feels that way to me. Amazoness gives a little goober to the Magni Catfish, which looks nothing like how I expected it to. It looks like a Doctor Who villain or something. So Spider-Man rescues the children and manages to find an escape route for them, but before he's able to leave with them, he's pulled back by Magni Catfish. He tries to hook another one of his weird sucky tube things onto Spider-Man, but accidentally plugs into something else and completely blows up his outer shell. Spider-Man manages to get the 3 girls out of the base and sends them home, calling in the GP7 to chase after Amazoness and Magni Catfish. He hops onto their truck and uses spider strings on Magni Catfish to pull him over and throw him into the road. Yeah, he looks a lot more like an actual catfish now. So anyway, he turns colossal and, you know, sword. The Youth Detective Club has expanded in members and all the children are safe, happy, and have become friends. Episode 29 begins with a ton of different explosions, all headed by the same culprit. Interpol asks Spider-Man to investigate. No, she's undercover as a yoga instructor. No, nowhere is safe. Amazoness is tracking the exact movements of someone called Chairman Sugi, the brains behind the Hinomoto Trading Company. She entrusts Bomb Wolf with the task of assassinating him, stressing that this is a 1 billion yen job, so you better not mess it up. Bomb Wolf plants a bomb on the car, rigging it to explode at a specific time, 9:47 AM. The next morning, Taki is trying to convince Hitomi not to go looking for the bomber's hideout. The bomb rigged to the car explodes, as does the one Bomb Wolf also rigged to the building. When Spider-Man arrives, the chairman is already dead, and is being mourned by his son. He notices a suspicious car is watching them, so he tails it, following Amazoness back to her yoga class. Unbeknownst to him, however, this is a trap. Bomb Wolf reveals himself, as he's been waiting for Spider-Man all along. The two fight in the gym, which is a surprisingly cool set piece for a battle. He tries to use his spider strings, but Bomb Wolf overpowers him, and then he keeps him in a disadvantageous position by chasing him down with rockets. Spider-Man only just barely manages to escape with his spider net, managing to get back home. Despite being shot, his healing factor allows him to completely recover in mere seconds. That's pretty hardcore. This guy is basically, this man's bulletproof. The next morning, Amazones visits the president with Bomb Wolf hidden away in a package. I mean, this is a little bit elaborate. She asks him for money, but he refuses, so Bomb Wolf puts a bomb on his table, puts it down very gently like he's handing him a gift, and Amazones threatens to blow up the building and to kill at least 8,000 people. Toby tells him about the bomb situation, asking Takia to come with her as she tries to report on her. He declines because he has a fever. This isn't really an act either, even though the building has been hijacked and it might get completely blown up. He just doesn't have the energy. He's suffering from feeling heavily demotivated. He's fearing that his actions are just all in vain.
What's it all mean? What's the point?
He brings flowers to his father's grave, apologizing for losing his will to fight. As he's recalling his past, he sees the boy from earlier, the one who lost his father, the chairman, to the assassination that the Iron Cross Army had been responsible for. In his eyes, he sees the pain and grief of a boy who lost his father, familiar, vengeful eyes. Taking on the mantle of Spider-Man, he tells him to leave revenge to him. He will take care of Bomb Wolf, so he promises. He opens up his Spider Bracelet and calls forward the GP7. He needs to get there, and he needs to get there very fast. Amazones receives the 1 billion yen she asked for, but starts the bomb anyway. It's due to explode in 10 minutes. Despite the urgency of the situation, Spider-Man climbs up this building unbelievably slowly. I mean, I know it's kind of his thing. It's just especially funny here. At the last second, he uses his spider strings to disarm the foot soldiers guarding the bomb, and he defuses it. Spider-Man approaches Bomb Wolf in his GP7, firing rockets at him before he's able to shoot his missiles in return. So Bomb Wolf turns big. Now, when I saw this machine BEM, given his abilities and his overall appearance, I assume he'd be pretty strong. I mean, he gave Spider-Man some serious trouble, whether he fell into a trap or not. But this is the second machine BEM to be defeated without the use of Leopardon whatsoever. Spider-Man calls in Marveler, completely tanks his weak rockets, then fires his cannons at Bomb Wolf and just completely eviscerates him. Takia sees the boy taking care of his family, inspiring him to be the one to take on the burden of revenge, rather than allowing others to follow the same path. Episode 30 begins with Atomi and Takia turning in a wallet that they found to the police. If a month passes, then hey, it's theirs. On his way back home, he uses his Spider Bracelet to detect some strange figures doing mysterious deeds as actually being foot soldiers from the Iron Cross Army. He pursues them, but a policewoman tries to pull him over for speeding. Takia actually just says, I don't care about the police, dude. He's not stopping for anyone. He just runs a red light. He just casually runs a red light. Eventually, he's being chased by not one, but like 3 different police cars. He's got a wanted level of like 3 stars. Takia accidentally drives into the water and makes the silliest noise I think I've ever heard him make. Shinko and Atomi warn him that the police are coming, and he tries to explain that he was going after the Iron Cross Army. She doesn't believe him, however, and places him under arrest. They've started petitioning for Takia's release. What? A fish? Takia's cellmate was clearly expecting this fish to show up, jumping out of the hole blown in the wall and running away. Takia then follows Sweet, calling in the GP7 to follow after them. Spider-Man tells the policewoman from earlier that he's going after the Iron Cross Army. She says that she's going after them too. Using their morphing abilities, the Iron Cross Army change the appearance of their vehicle and pass by the police undetected. The policewoman, whose name is Akane, is scolded for not listening to Takia and for interrupting Spider-Man from conducting his heroic duties. So I guess vigilantism just isn't illegal here. Akane's younger brother appears, and it's revealed to Spider-Man that the Iron Cross Army killed her older brother, a detective. During a police shootout, he sacrificed his life to rescue a boy trapped in the crossfire. Ever since, she's sworn to take revenge for her brother and to become a fine detective just as he once was. Spider-Man basically just tells the inspector not to fire her. She's placed under house arrest, but she keeps her job. Whilst under house arrest, it's pretty clear that she wants to take action, and she's convinced that her older brother, if he were in this situation, would not be sitting around letting himself be stuck at home either. Takia's cellmate, during the brief few seconds that he was imprisoned, was actually a pickpocket, and the Iron Cross Army broke him out to assist in the successful transportation of something known as Cobalt X. To successfully infiltrate the facility holding the Cobalt X, they need to give a covert listening device disguised as a tie clip to the pickpocket so that he can sneak it in. They're also making something called a Cobalt Bomb, whatever that is. So Spider-Man's visiting traffic control, trying to find a picture of the vehicle that he was pursuing earlier. He finds a patrol car with the plate number of a normal car, so it must be fake. They send out a search for the fake patrol car whilst the pickpocket successfully switches out the tire clip with the listening device. Akane encounters the pickpocket, exclaiming that he's under arrest and chasing after him. The pickpocket is shot by the modified men in the fake patrol car, and they almost run over Akane until Spider-Man manages to get her out of the way just before contact. The pickpocket is actually still alive. Before he passes, he reveals the job that he was made to do by the Iron Cross Army. He swapped the tire clip of the security section chief with a listening device. Spider-Man and the police soon realize that their reason for doing this is to get their hands on the Cobalt X. As their heist is ongoing, Spider-Man drives after them in his GP7, pledging that he won't let them escape this time. They shoot at him with their silly little guns, but the GP7 has firepower of its own too, so he fires back, which does considerably more damage. Akane appears in front of the truck, trying to cut them off and demanding that they stop. They being this fishman thing, since all the goons are gone. The fish jumps out of the truck and Akane swerves out of the way. Machine Ben Monkfish transforms into his gigantic form. The trend of incredibly disappointingly weak Machine Bems continues with Monkfish, as he is defeated solely with marvelous cannons. So at this point you might be noticing a trend. There hasn't been a single unique Leopardon scene since episode 22, and a lot of recent episodes have omitted him entirely, with Spider-Man just using Marveler to defeat Machine Bems, whilst any inclusion of Leopardon generally only has him using Sword Vigor straight away. The reason for this is that the Leopardon suit was stolen halfway through production of the show. And for the time, the suit was incredibly expensive. I mean, keep in mind, it's the first of its kind, so they just simply didn't have the funding to make another one for the remainder of the series, which led to them reusing stock footage and splicing it together with the monsters on screen to make it look like he was really there. Also, apparently the suit was difficult for the stuntman to move around in, which would explain the amount of reused scenes even early on in the series, outside of it just being clearly time and cost efficient to do so. But from this point on, specifically, I would really not hold your hopes out for like a really cool Leopardon final battle in the last episode, for example, because that's just not going to happen. Anyways, getting back to the episode, Monkfish blows up. Spider-Man rescues Akane from her police car and puts her in the GP7, bringing her to safety. Episode 31, this is without a doubt one of the best episodes in the entire show. I absolutely love it. Opens with a marksman shooting a bunch of metal cans. What is this? They're cowboys. He has an acoustic guitar slung over his back too, and a child. In the meantime, Shinko encounters an actual insane person. She says good morning, and the guy freaks out and tries to stab her, but only manages to cut her on her hand. The guy had been smoking something called MASH, a hallucinatory drug. So Professor Monster's behind this. He's making the Iron Cross Army make a bunch of MASH, circulating as much of it as possible around Japan. How do they make MASH, you ask? With this giant mushroom. Yeah, the Machine Ben this time around is a mushroom called Kinokonga, who can produce mushrooms from his body, which they then mix with regular poisonous mushrooms, creating MASH. This is an episode about people doing shrooms. Okay, YouTube, allow me to clarify now. Do not take drugs. Don't do shrooms. Drugs are bad, and this is an episode about how explicitly bad they are. They are not good. Okay, moving on. Spider-Man tries to track down the source of all the MASH. Where's it being distributed from? Checks out a company rumored to be involved in the drug trade, but he doesn't find anything. This guy, who's all mashed up, goes flying off of his bike after driving straight into a truck. Out of nowhere, the cowboy guy from earlier appears and correctly deduces that the cause of death was MASH. Duck is just running. What is going on? So he investigates a Spider-Man, watching as the cowboy detective and his son head into the company that he investigated prior, beating up a ton of dudes inside using his guitar as a weapon. He threatens them with a stick of dynamite to get information about their boss's whereabouts out of them. Okay, false alarm. It wasn't a stick of dynamite, it was just a firecracker. Spider-Man tells him he can't involve his son in this investigation, it's just too dangerous. He just leaves. Cowboy heads to the location specified, shooting a bunch of guards there like he's the main character. And to be honest, Spider-Man does kind of feel like a side character in this episode so far. Amazonas appears to summon some more guards with a totally different look, it seems. There's no more orange hair. I mean, don't worry, this change isn't permanent. She seems to just fluctuate between looks from now on. But I prefer the other one. After the guards are taken care of, Spider-Man sneaks in through the roof whilst they break in through the front door. It's more MASH! More MASH! The cowboy questions a guy who was just laying there, injured. He tells him that Amazonas betrayed him, and then he dies. Yeah, that was not the guy they were looking for, I guess, so they both leave. Spider-Man then approaches them again, telling them it would be reckless to continue. He tries to ignore him, but Spider-Man takes his car keys. Yeah, it's my car now. He asks him why he's doing this, to which the cowboy responds with revenge. You know, I'm pretty sure almost everyone in this show has the exact same motive of just, I want revenge. In fall of last year, whilst tracking down where the mash comes from, someone killed his wife whilst he was busy staking out a potential lead. Also, his son got hit by a car and lost his memory, and he's hoping to recover his memory somehow. He tells Spider-Man that he wants to do this alone, so he gives him his car keys back. He's just like me! Oh my god, path of revenge, he's just like me! Spider-Man's attacked by some foot soldiers as he watches over the cowboy and his son. In his attempt at pursuing them, he gets lost in the woods. The cowboy sings a song from his son's childhood, and then a spider tells Spider-Man which way to go. Amazonas deceives the cowboy with a distress call and subsequently pushes him down a cliff, but he's saved by Spider-Man using his spider strings. When they return to the campfire, the cowboy's son has been taken by the Iron Cross army. Fortunately for them, Spider-Man finds the entrance to their base and sneaks inside, which allows us to get this incredible line. Destroyer of the mushroom, Spider-Man. Yeah, there's a iconic moment showing up that you might remember from the beginning of the video. If you think this episode has made no sense so far, you would be completely correct. And it's about to make even less. The cowboy enters the base, and then Takeshi's memories come back to him. He tells his dad that it was the mushroom Kinekonga who killed his mother. What do you mean it's a god? The fight eventually gets taken outside, and Mushroom Man turns into big fungus. Also, Leopardon uses his arm rockets to destroy the MASH processing plant. Now that Takeshi's memories have returned to him, and that his father has gotten his revenge, the two can return to their normal lives. For Spider-Man, however, their story serves as a grim reminder of the sadness he feels at having lost his own father. So, episode 32 kicks off with Amazonas, Master of Disguise, engaging in her trickery once again. She's the second wife of this random old man. Where does she find the time to conduct these elaborate schemes? Her husband recently developed an ultra power transformer, which transforms all of the electricity for Tokyo. Basically, if it breaks down, there's a complete blackout across the entire city. You know, not conspicuous at all. She pries about the weakness in the transformer, getting more and more hostile until she eventually gives up her disguise. He runs away, but she chases after him and throws him over the railing. 3 days later, his daughter Kyoko is investigating his disappearance. Shinko and Hitomi are seemingly waiting for Takia, who's invited them to come see a movie, when they're hassled, almost carjacked, and in the middle of being robbed by 3 girls. Kyoko, girl boss that she is, illy solos all of them and tells them to back off. When Takia shows up, Hitomi and Shinko have already gone off with Kyoko to some kind of party or club. Kyoko's younger sibling is trying to go inside the club when Takia sees him getting thrown out. He says he'll go inside to check on his sister for him, and around here Kyoko seems to be known as Kyoko the Lightning Flash. Inside the club, Kyoko is approached and threatened by members of the Iron Cross army, which sets off Takia's spider sense. They attempt to kidnap her, but Spider-Man stops them and successfully rescues her. He gives her a little tracker device, a little spider tracker. She's very happy about it. Not sure where he got this from, but he has a little device where if you press the button, it will summon him. It's like Marvel vs. Capcom. She can just call in a Spider-Man assist. Now presenting as Takia, he goes inside of the club to inform Kyoko that her younger brother, Kenichi, is outside waiting for her. Shinko offers to take Kenichi home. Hitomi extorts money from Takia to buy a bunch of food, and he looks absolutely heartbroken. When Kenichi gets home, Amazonas is still posing as his mother, making him tea and cake. She manages to find out from Kenichi that there's a secret safe in the study. Time to do a little bit of swiping. She goes down to the study and breaks into the safe, but there's nothing inside. It's completely empty. Meanwhile, Professor Monster's just enjoying the downfall of New York City. Kinda love this guy. Basically doesn't do anything except sit in his chair and go, hey, I'm looking forward to causing some mischief. They figure that Kyoko probably has the diagrams, and that if they kidnap Kyoko, Spider-Man will show up. You know, 2 birds, 1 stone. Because that's always panned out for them so well in the past. Takia begins investigating Kyoko, as well as her father's disappearance, which leads him to investigating her household due to a suspicious mother figure. He peers into their window. Now, okay, he's done this many times before, but I should just mention now, this is really weird, and that you can't just do that. You can't just peer into someone's window unprompted, man. Anyways, naturally, he recognizes Amazonas, and she recognizes him in return. She tries to hold Kenichi hostage with a knife, but he uses his spider strings to disarm her. From beneath the ground emerges Machine Bem, Electric Worm. Does he have sunglasses on? Kyoko takes the diagrams from the police department only to realize she's being pursued by the Iron Cross army. She uses her device to call in Spider-Man for help and tries to run away. Just before she gets shot, Spider-Man swoops in and saves her. They recover the important documents, but there's a file missing, the technical diagrams for the power plant. Spider-Man then realizes what it is that they're trying to do, so he takes the GP7 to the power plant and steals them out of Amazonas' hands with his spider strings. Electric Worm turns very large. Large worm. Wait, I can't just cut to the Sword Vigor explosion, because he uses Arc Term for this, like, I don't know, like the first time in what feels like forever. I mean, that's kind of cool. Kyoko gives Spider-Man his little spider summoning device back, and she goes off with Kenichi to return to her regular life. Episode 33 begins with Hitomi doing a model shoot with a girl who's generally quite terse and hard to work with. After she leaves, the girl throws a rock at a bird. Don't worry, she doesn't actually throw a rock at a real bird, but then she smacks it with a stick, which I will not be showing because in that scene, it actually is a real bird. Hitomi's photos of the girl with her pendant are successfully submitted to the weekly magazine, which is noticed by Amazones, who presents the photos to Professor Monster. The pendant is no ordinary pendant, it comes from the planet Spider. When he completely took over Garria's clan 400 years ago, he stole a bunch of treasure. During his escape, his spacecraft was destroyed and his treasure was scattered across space. This includes the pendant, which he has now discovered as being in the hands of the girl. He instructs Amazones to go and acquire it. Hitomi's pretty happy about her photos being printed. Takia asks what's going on and finds out about the pictures being printed, but he immediately notices that something is strange about the pendant. The girl from earlier, who really hates birds, also hates boys, so she smacks them with her stick. Takia approaches her and notices the pendant. He goes to grab it, but he gets smacked, then asks, politely this time, if he can see the pendant. She says no, so Takia, in the fruitiest way possible, says, she throws a rock at a foot soldier who she seems to just kind of sense being there. Takia instantly suits up as Spider-Man and fights the foot soldiers off, trapping them all in his spider net. As Spider-Man, he approaches the girl, asking her if she wants to play. Then he asks about the pendant. Hey, wait a minute, you're after my pendant as well. Yeah, well, you know, I'm not playing with you after all then. She promises to tell Spider-Man where she got the pendant from if he can beat her in a serious one-on-one fight. No, not the stick. No, not the stick. Yeah, Spider-Man gets absolutely outmatched by this girl. I mean, okay, look, it's pretty clear that the pendant's giving her spider powers, but it's kind of embarrassing that he's getting this source. The girl calls him pathetic. She's been leaving out food for a harvest guardian god, attacking the birds that tried to steal and eat it. One day she forgot to make an offering, and this happened to her dad. She lives with her aunt now that she has no parents. Spider-Man asks her about how she has such incredible powers. She explains that when she has the pendant on, she grows stronger. Amazones informs Professor Monster that Spider-Man is after the pendant too. Nah.
Get ready for the next battle. Firefox.
Later that night, the girl dreams about this, and when she wakes up, everything turns red and she hears a mystical voice. When she looks outside, Machine Bem Firefox is beckoning her, which she mistakes as being her harvest god. I'll be honest, I think this is the coolest Machine Bem. It just looks insanely cool. Firefox asks her what the pendant around her neck is and who gave it to her. Just before she's able to tell him, Spider-Man intervenes, dodging Firefox's flames for a long while until he eventually manages to escape. The girl is kidnapped, but Takia witnesses it, so he rides after the car on his bike in hot pursuit. Amazones demands that the girl tell her where she received the pendant, then explains it is from Planet Spider. I mean, not that she's gonna know what that means. She manages to break free, running away before she's stopped in her tracks by Firefox creating a ring of fire around her. In fear of the fire, she explains that she received the pendant from her father, who found it whilst digging underground. Spider-Man jumps into the ring of fire and grabs the girl. Amazones believes them to have been successfully destroyed by the flames, but when they dissipate, Spider-Man emerges from beneath the earth. How do you do that? Use dig. Big Firefox. Okay, this Machine Bem is by far like the most interesting, I think. He shoots massive blazes of fire towards Spider-Man, forcing him to dodge and weave out of the way. It's too bad that they didn't have the resources to give us a more interesting Leopardon fight with him, because what happens next is exactly what you'd expect. Also, she gives him the pendant. Will he ever use it? Probably not. Episode 34 starts with a bunch of kids looking over a photo of what seems to be a UFO sighting. They accuse the kid who took it of fabricating the picture, claiming it to be fake. He insists it's real and that he really did take the picture. When they spot Takia and Hitomi, they say that they should ask her, being aware of her job as a freelance photographer. So when they bring Hitomi the picture for inspection, she concludes that the UFO is actually just a plate. They will start beating up Plate Boy, prompting Takia to stop them, but not before one of the bullies completely breaks his camera. Takia and Hitomi follow the child, whose name is Nobuo, back to his home to make sure that he's okay. He's built his own darkroom and everything. Hitomi asks him why he'd create a fake photo if he loves photography so much. It turns out he was upset that everyone had been trashing on his old, decrepit little camera, since it was a family heirloom given to him by his father. He wanted to prove that he could take an amazing photo of it, so he fabricated a UFO sighting. Hitomi kind of has a nice little character moment here, telling him that a camera is all about capturing the unfiltered human experience as you would through a person's eyes, rather than documenting something incredible. She lends him her camera and he becomes her photography apprentice. Nobuo goes around taking pictures of practically everything, and in the midst of doing so, he stumbles upon a factory and witnesses a man being shot. The guy who shot the man, who sort of looks like a mob boss, but he's apparently the president of the company, is working under Amazones. Nobuo tries to run away, but bangs his foot on probably the loudest thing in the entire factory. catching their attention. He runs out of the factory and yells in the streets about how someone has been murdered. When the police arrive, the body is gone. Nobody seems to believe his story. When Hitomi and Takio appear, he pleads to them too, insisting that he's telling the truth. His mum shows up. This is a boy who cried wolf kind of story. As he's being told by his mother to apologize to the president, Nobuo remembers that he took a picture of the incident. Back home, whilst developing the picture in his dark room, a modified man sets fire to his dinner. Takio then notices a man outside fleeing from the scene, so he pursues him as Spider-Man. He was a foot soldier in disguise. So after he successfully subdues the foot soldier, a machine bem appears and blows them up. The factory that the Iron Cross Army chose was specifically chosen because it produces toxic gases that can be used to make something called scrap gas. She showcases their newly developed scrap gas, which turns a car into a bunch of bits in a matter of seconds. They speak of the Tokyo scrap gas operation. Like planning to nuke the entire city wasn't enough. They're just going to straight up dematerialize it. Amazonas expresses her concern at Takio loitering around. Come on, how at this point have you not put 2 and 2 together? Nobuo has taken a bunch of photos of his superiors doing a bunch of immoral and sleazy stuff, running away when they accuse him of lying and hating adults. Spider-Man comes to his aid, saying that he believes him and that he'll make sure to reveal the truth for everyone else to see. When he heads to the factory to investigate for himself, the workers there don't seem to be from the Iron Cross Army. Amazonas quickly realizes that Spider-Man's infiltrating the factory and orders her foot soldiers to shut off all of the machines, out of fear that his enhanced hearing will allow him to track them down. So he evades some darts and arrows, then he finds and disables the hidden camera that they're using to watch him with. He's using echolocation to try and find them, so he's just crawling around and banging a wrench. Nobuo wants to go and find the Iron Cross Army, but both Hitomi and Shinko are too scared to accompany him. The machine bem watches Spider-Man bang his wrench on the ground. Then he tries to shoot him. Amazonas commences the scrap gas attack. The foot soldiers are so incompetent that the flash from Nobuo's camera makes them scream, fall over, and then cause the scrap gas to leak in their own base, forcing them to retreat. The president of the company unsuccessfully attempts to shoot Nobuo, which results in him snapping an incriminating photo. The machine bem reveals itself as Machine Bem Scrapman. Come on, this is just straight out of Yu-Gi-Oh! 5Ds. Spider-Man and Nobuo take a funny little picture together, finishing off the episode. Episode 35 starts with a ton of foot soldiers running through the streets at night, climbing up and breaking into the research laboratory of Toei University to steal some mummified bodies which were originally discovered in the Amazon. Taki hears about this incident on the news. He feels uneasy about it. Amazonas presents the mummies to Professor Monster, who is very pleased. He notes that they're due to awaken from a 10 million year sleep, preparing to begin some kind of surgical procedure on them. They were just pretending, guys. There's no real gorillas this time. The child, known as Shinichi, unaware that he's been the victim of a prank, reports the gorilla sighting to the police. When they investigate the area, they find no evidence of gorillas and proclaim him as being a liar. Shinichi has no friends. He's sad and lonely. Now everyone thinks that he's lying about having seen gorillas. He plays some more of his paper airplane, which leads him to discovering the 2 mummies who have been moved into coffins underground by the Iron Cross Army. He runs back to the officer from before and tells him that he saw 2 open coffins of people inside. But naturally, he doesn't believe him because of the gorilla incident. Taki's attempting to talk to Interpol, asking them about the mummy theft, when he happens to tune into Shinichi's frequency, who mentions coffin lids opening. He arranges to meet with him. Shinichi shows Spider-Man the way to the location of the coffins, but Amazonas can detect his approach, so she intends to set a trap by using the awakened mummies to defeat him. When he peers underground, he notices the coffins, prying the bars open to go inside and investigate. Also, they're dressed like nuns for some reason. Amazonas calls in Machine Bem Tiger Pump. She orders him to back up the 2 women when they eventually attempt to kill Spider-Man. So Shinichi and Spider-Man try to lead the 2 women somewhere safe, but they vanish midway with only their evil laughs echoing through the forest. The 2 reborn warriors of the Amazon, Bella and Rita, are now wearing full hunter gear and shooting at Spider-Man with bow and arrows and machine guns. Whilst attempting to dodge their attacks, Spider-Man gets shot in the leg with an arrow. He limps away into some tall grass as he is pursued by Tiger Pump and his foot soldiers, who intend to finish him off. He uses the tall grass to his advantage, hiding from the foot soldiers as he heals from his injuries. Shinichi finds him and they hide together. He asks Shinichi why he hasn't run away, since his life is at risk. Shinichi apologizes for causing Spider-Man trouble, saying that it's all his fault, and he tells him not to worry because it's fine. He's got a healing factor. It's all good. In an attempt to buy Spider-Man time to recover, Shinichi runs away and draws the attention of Tiger Pump and the foot soldiers. Eventually, he runs into Amazonas and the 2 Amazon women. He's cornered with nowhere to go. She tells Bella and Rita to send him to hell. Okay, it's a bit hardcore. Just before they're able to kill Shinichi, Spider-Man fires missiles off at the Iron Cross Army with his GP7, saving his life. Tiger Pump is one of those, he's one of the weak machine bems as well, shall we say. No Leopardon this time. Marveler is enough to take care of him, using only his cannons. monsters. Interestingly enough though, Bella and Rita aren't defeated at the end of this episode. It seems like they're actually not just monsters of the week. We're going to be seeing them as recurring villains in the future. They pledge their allegiance to Professor Monster, and he says that he's looking forward to their work. Episode 36 begins with the Iron Cross Army examining an oncoming meteor. Upon closer inspection, it seems to be a mask. Upon seeing the mask, Professor Monster mentions the name Dr. Miracle. The Yamashiro family is awoken by the meteor, which is growing a fluorescent red in the night sky. It lands nearby the house of a young boy, who investigates it only to find a menacing, mysterious cloaked figure walking out from the light. I'm not gonna lie, this character's design goes pretty raw. It's an onion. Bella and Rita escort the figure to Professor Monster. This is the Dr. Miracle that he mentioned earlier. This time, however, she isn't wearing her mask. Professor Monster introduces her to Amazoness, Bella, and Rita. So Dr. Miracle has been called by Professor Monster to eliminate Spider-Man. Amazoness doesn't seem particularly convinced, so she tests her by using her foot soldiers, which Dr. Miracle easily disposes of. I wouldn't say this is really that shocking. I mean, foot soldiers are kind of like jobbers extraordinaire. She drinks a little potion, and then she turns into the Miracle Mask, which allows her to freely take any human form. Takuya, Hitomi, Shinko, and Takuji are going meteorite hunting after the sighting that they had last night. They encounter the boy from earlier, the one who witnessed Dr. Miracle's arrival on Earth. He tells them that he and the other members of the Man-Man Detective Club are searching for pieces from the UFO. Takuya finds a little red chunk, and when he analyzes it, he gets a titanium response, implying it's not a meteorite, but instead a piece of metal, potentially from a spacecraft of some kind. Miracle Mask goes into the boy's house and does a little thieving, a little swiping. The detective club runs after her, but she's really just walking at a brisk pace. They try to take a picture of Miracle Mask, but she doesn't show up in the photo at all. And then she turns into a gorilla. Takuya's spider sense starts screaming a gorilla attack, so he descends from above to throw the gorilla into a pole. Then urges the kids to escape. Dr. Miracle introduces herself to Spider-Man, and then the two engage in battle. He uses spider strings on Dr. Miracle, but she turns into a type of spider hunting bee using Miracle Bee. She stings Spider-Man, which places him in critical condition. Is that a bag of onions? Takuya's entire body has now gone completely numb and he's now bedridden. Hitomi tries to get him to come with her since somebody has threatened that the British crown jewels will be stolen. Somebody's gonna neuter King Charles. Anyway, Spider-Man still hasn't fully recovered, but he goes to confront Dr. Miracle regardless. He reaches the crown jewels, being told he has 15 minutes left until she attempts her heist. The detective club tries to sneak inside, but they're stopped by security. When the time runs out, the man in the room reveals himself to have actually been Dr. Miracle in disguise. So she turns into a bee again and stings him. He's met his match. B. At the roof of the building, Dr. Miracle flaunts the necklace and frames Spider-Man as having betrayed everyone by allowing them to steal it. In reality, Spider-Man's entire body is paralyzed at this point, being puppeteered by Dr. Miracle. This gives him some really bad press. Everyone is convinced that he's a thief and that they're working in cahoots. The Man-Man Detective Club follow the smell of onions, which brings them to the base of the Iron Cross Army just as Amazoness, Bella, and Rita are pulling up in a vehicle. Dr. Miracle has literally put this man in a wheelchair. Amazoness approaches his body to unmask him, but Dr. Miracle forbids her from landing a hand on him, as he is her prisoner. She reveals her intentions of taking over Amazoness' position as the commander of the Iron Cross Army, then drinks her little mask change spell card juice, and prepares to execute Spider-Man. The detective club are detained and hauled inside by the Iron Cross Army. Dr. Miracle threatens their lives, urging Spider-Man to fight against the paralysis in his own body to try and muster up the strength to save them. But ultimately, this is just used as a means of ridiculing him. She slaps him around with her umbrella, and I mean, this is kind of crazy to see. Out of nowhere, not only have we been given a totally new antagonist that isn't a machine bem, but they put Spider-Man in a position that no other villain has been able to do in the past 35 episodes of the show's 41 episode run so far. Spider-Man pleads to Garia to give him strength. It's at this moment that Spider-Man realizes, oh yeah, I'm immune to bee stings. If you're wondering how he's immune to bee stings, apparently the poisonous spiders that bit Garia in the cave built up an immunity to bee stings, so he has an immunity to bee stings, I guess. Spider-Man beats on Dr. Miracle and she pleads for Amazoness to help her, but Amazoness, well, unsurprisingly, completely abandons her. Yeah, maybe talking about replacing her to her face wasn't a great idea. Dr. Miracle, despite not being a machine bem, has the ability to turn into giant size too, using Big Miracle. Spider-Man calls in Leopardon and, well, he one-shots her. Kind of a shame. I like Dr. Miracle. I felt like they could have been utilized more, and honestly, that was a bit of a cop-out, even for this show's standards. Alright, so episode 37. Huh? What was the point of the onion? The bag of onions? Well, I mean, what a great question. And the answer may surprise you. Episode 37 begins with a fortune teller using tarot cards to predict his future. He gets a reverse death card, which, as far as I know, isn't even strictly indicative of a terrible future befalls you, but he's the fortune teller, you know, not me. Anyways, Takuya's doing a handstand. Shinko and Takaji run into his room out of fear of the thunderstorm outside, and Takuya never seems to think that anything is normal, so the thunderstorm catches his attention too. The fortune teller predicts the coming of the Enma Devil, who has been resurrected from hell. This child seems to think that only Spider-Man is capable of fighting the devil, so he runs off to seek his help. They're really stepping up the threats in these last few episodes. I mean, this is some JRPG endgame stuff right here. The boy goes high up on a building and yells out for Spider-Man. Passers-by are concerned that he's gonna jump off the building or something, so the police take him down from the fence and escort him away, whilst Hitomi takes some photos. Later on, Hitomi's talking to Shinko about the boy who yelled out for Spider-Man's help, which Takuya happens to overhear. He wants to know what he has to say, so he appears before him as Spider-Man, and the boy tells him that the Enma Devil has been resurrected. Yeah, he doesn't really believe him. In the meantime, the Enma Devil approaches the fortune teller and tells him that he's come all the way from hell to kill him. How does a literal demon kill someone in the Japanese Spider-Man universe? A blowgun. The boy finds his father laying on the ground in his study, and Spider-Man appears shortly after, having been alerted of the man's death through his spider sense. He apologizes for not believing him, saying that he could have prevented his death had he done so. The Enma Devil goes to visit Professor Monster. He asks him, "Can you not hear the voices? The tortured voices of all the machine Bems defeated by Spider-Man flood hell with their hatred." He was able to resurrect himself by sucking the juice out of the machine Bems. He drips some green juice onto the foot soldier and it brings him back to life. The Enma Devil has brought back the extract of the machine Bems from hell, which when used can bring the dead back to life. Yeah, but could you defeat Spider-Man though? Yeah. He tells Professor Monster that he can't deal with Spider-Man just yet because the boy who knows about his resurrection from hell is still alive. Amazonas tells him to leave it up to Bella and Rita. When they arrive at the boy's house, Spider-Man uses his Spider Bracelet to see through their disguises. He leaps outside and draws them away from his house, leading them up to a rooftop and battling the both of them there. He knows how dangerous they can be after their last encounter, so he doesn't hold back this time. Like he really doesn't hold back. He kicks the two of them off the building and kills them both. The Enma Devil makes his appearance using his green juice to resurrect Bella and Rita. He taunts Spider-Man with his ability to bring back the dead, claiming he'll revive Machine Bem after Machine Bem, setting them loose on the city. He challenges Spider-Man to a battle. So Spider-Man goes to the location specified by the Enma Devil, intending to retrieve the green juice for himself and use it to bring back the boy's father. When he arrives, however, he notices he's in a minefield, so he carefully maneuvers his way around them. I won't lie, this genuinely jump scared me when I first watched it. I was too immersed in him playing Minesweeper, it just caught me off guard. He fights off the foot soldiers and is then challenged by the Enma Devil, who promises to defeat him on behalf of all the machine Bems that he's ever defeated in the past. All his potion bogus. Nothing gets past the spider strings, dude, not even a literal devil from hell. Give me that green juice. Yeah, an actual demon can't even survive sword vigor. He still goes down in one hit. Spider-Man tries to pour the green juice on the boy's father, but the bottle is seemingly empty. However, fortunately, just one drop is left, and it manages to touch his face, bringing him back to life. Episode 38 kicks off with Amazonas offering a deal of 500 million yen to a man, seemingly some kind of scientist, who has managed to contain what is known as the botulism bacteria in capsule form. Effectively, she's trying to buy a biological weapon off of him, which has the capability to kill everyone within a certain proximity in around 6 hours, with it becoming safe to inhabit only 12 hours after. However, he insists that 500 million yen isn't enough. He wants 10 billion yen. During this entire conversation, the man's niece was peering through a keyhole and listening in. Also, we find out that he keeps the capsule hidden under a little statue. So, you know, there's the Youth Detective Club, the Man Detective Club, and now they're called the Sunset Detective Club. Anyways, most of the kids are tired of playing detectives, so they all start fighting. Takuya gets involved and he breaks up the fight. Sanpei, the one dressed in full detective getup and the, well, de facto leader of the group, is entrusted a funny little object by the niece of the man from earlier. Amazonas, Bella, and Rita are threatening the scientist with poison arrows until he tells them where the capsule is. He finally gives in and tells them it's underneath the statue, but when she checks underneath the statue, there's nothing there. Then he collapses. His niece gets taken by foot soldiers, activating Takuya's spider sense. Spider-Man leaps through the window and fights off the foot soldiers until his leg is chomped by Machine Bem Toothache Alligator. Spider-Man deduces that the name Toothache Alligator means he must have a weakness for sweets. So he tells him that there's cake over there, and he just kicks him in the face when he's distracted. Guys, he could have just called it alligator, and then he would have been none the wiser. Oh, he's not dead. He just has a high fever, and he's incredibly ill from the poison. Spider-Man inquires about why the man would be targeted by the Iron Cross army. Amazonas deduces that somebody stole the capsule from underneath the statue, prompting an intensive search. Spider-Man looks around the man's lab and learns of the botulism bacteria. He must have hidden it underneath the statue. His family pushes back against the allegations, though, claiming that he was nothing but an honest man. man and would have no reason to be working on something so dangerous. When Spider-Man looks out of the window, he notices the boy, Sanpei, from the Youth Detective Club. Takia tails both of them and finds out that the boy from the detective club hid the capsule as instructed by the man's niece, as to defend his reputation. Hitomi, Shinko, and Takuji just kind of spawn in out of nowhere. They're going fishing for Missy, which is like the Loch Ness monster, so Takia joins them. The spider sense goes off and they reel in Missy, which is actually Toothache Alligator. The Iron Cross Army attempts to kidnap the children, but Takia changes into Spider-Man and stops them. Whilst hiding, the non-believer of the detective club, the one who got tired of playing detective, spots him through the window. They try to explain that the Iron Cross Army is after them, but he doesn't believe them. Bella and Rita appear and kidnap the two of them. Before they are driven away, they throw their badges out of the car and onto the ground. Spider-Man later finds these badges, quickly realizing that it's intended to be a sign for their friends. He brings the badges to them and they believe what they were trying to tell them about the Iron Cross Army. He asks the other members of the Youth Detective Club if they knew where he may have hidden the capsule. The Youth Detective Club all suit up once more, donning their badges. They show Spider-Man their secret message drop location, which they designated in case of emergencies such as this one. They find a note and it tells them the location of the capsule. By the time the Iron Cross Army reach the capsule's location, Spider-Man has already swiped it out of the small red container. I have it. Tiki.
Leopardon!
The Youth Detective Club, now reunited, bid farewell to Spider-Man. Episode 39 is definitely one of the all-time greats of the show. It begins with Takia bonding with a giant spider. You know, how cute. Out of nowhere, he senses a great threat coming his way. Intending to face it head on, he drives towards it. Oh, the cowboy guy is back! He's back! His son has snuck aboard his car whilst he's trying to work. Using his binoculars, he spots a man known as Killer Nelson. Two men attempt to arrest him, but Killer Nelson takes no prisoners. He beats them with ease, until Amazonas shows up and challenges him. She calls in one of her Iron Cross Army guys, fully armored up, who just straight up kills Killer Nelson. Yeah, they try to arrest this guy. It doesn't go well, but he does hold his own against some foot soldiers. I mean, I'm pretty sure I could hold my own against some foot soldiers, to be honest. He's about to probably get killed by the armored warrior when he's interrupted by the gunfire of the cowboy. It's a standoff. He drops his gun once he realizes he's surrounded, but Spider-Man levels the playing field by intervening, forcing the Iron Cross Army to retreat. Cowboy and his friends explain who Killer Nelson is to Spider-Man. So this guy is an invincible pro wrestler of some kind. The armored warrior from earlier who dispatched of him is actually a machine bem, despite his human-like appearance. They have two machine bems, a great wrestler, which is this one, and a superhuman fighter, which they're pitting against the greatest martial artists in the country. Those who are deemed weak are killed, whilst those who are deemed strong are kept, but their motives are still unclear. Cowboy's son, Takeshi, is introduced to the Yamashiro household for the time being. Amazonas and Professor Monster conspire together about a little trap that they've laid for Spider-Man, which is immediately revealed to be a bunch of posters descending from the sky talking of a world martial arts tournament. It's the tournament arc! Hitomi grabs one of the posters and runs back home, so Takia takes a look. He's flabbergasted. He recognizes the monster, of course. Interpol contacts him to tell him that Tachibana, the cowboy man himself, is on a mission to rescue somebody held captive by the Iron Cross Army, one of the martial artists that got abducted earlier on. Fearing that he's in danger, Takia heads off towards his location immediately. Spider-Man warns Cowboy that if he goes in there, he won't come back alive, but he doesn't care. He can't abandon his friend. He pleads with Tachibana to think of his son, but he won't back down. With no other choice, Spider-Man punches him in the gut and tells him that he'll go alone, wishing to spare Takeshi of another loss of a loved one in his life. As Spider-Man arrives at the island, he quickly gathers that it's crawling with Iron Cross Army foot soldiers. He sneaks into the underground prison and frees Shimamoto, and one of the great martial artists from earlier that was deemed to have passed the test. When they make their escape outside, they begin to hear chanting. Finally, Professor Monster actually meets Spider-Man face to face for the second time. Yeah, that's pretty hard to believe, right, considering he's the main villain of the show. But they haven't seen each other since episode 4. I think the closest they got is when Professor Monster indiscriminately shot that laser at him whilst he was observing him from afar, back in episode 22. Shimamoto turns on him, putting his sword against Spider-Man's neck. It seems like he's being hypnotized with a funky little device. Professor Monster forces him to take part in the World Martial Arts Tournament, starting now. First up is the Great Wrestler, the dude from earlier who killed Killer Nelson, and this guy called Black Iron. Yeah, well, you know, Great Wrestler wins. After that is Shimamoto and Superhuman Fighter. Spider-Man pleads for them to stop, knowing that this will almost certainly result in Shimamoto's death. He says that he'll fight Superhuman Fighter instead, but as he steps in, he's pitted against Great Wrestler and Superhuman Fighter at the same time. He does exceptionally well for a while, but then they tag team on him and he desperately tries to call in the GP7. For once, however, it's not working. Professor Monster has set up an electromagnetic barrier to prevent him from using his Spider Bracelet. He tells Shimamoto to finish Spider-Man whilst he's being restrained by Great Wrestler and Superhuman Fighter. Wow, Professor Monster has actually just pretty much outplayed him this time. Except that there's just one thing that he didn't account for. The main character. Tachibana, the protagonist, the cowboy, destroys the electromagnetic barrier and creates an opening for Spider-Man to be freed, prompting him to steal the hypnosis device away from Professor Monster. With his Spider Bracelet functional once more, he calls in Leopardon. For some reason, out of great wrestler and superhuman fighter, only superhuman fighter can actually turn gigantic, so he destroys that one. Spider-Man and Tachibana shake hands. I'm not sure you could name a more iconic duo in fiction than Spider-Man and guitar-wielding cowboy. Penultimate episode. Jeez. Okay, yeah, this one's about planes, I think. Yeah, it's planes or something like that. It's an episode about planes. Episode 40 starts with Professor Monster watching a plane flying around. He reminisces on an engine that was designed for a plane just before Japan's defeat in World War II, the Zero engine, which he wants to install onto his machine BEM air bomber. When the war concluded, the technical diagrams of the Zero engine went missing, so unfortunately he can't power up his machine BEM air bomber just yet. Toby is taking pictures of this kid showing off his remote control airplane. His grandpa, Obara, shows up and critiques his flying skills, then tells Hitomi to go home. The boy tells Hitomi that his grandpa was one of the designers behind the Zero fighter planes during the war. Hitomi just sort of loiters around for some reason, just as the boy's grandpa receives a call from someone called Nishimura. The call distresses him quite a bit, as it seems that he's been informed that the diagrams for the Zero engine have been stolen. He drives off to go see the man who called him, with Hitomi and Takia in hot pursuit. Amazonas is posing as Nishimura's secretary, of course. She tells him that he collapsed from a brain hemorrhage. When she brings Obara to see him, it becomes quickly apparent to him that Nishimura is dead, and that this is all a setup. The Iron Cross Army threatens him, aiming to get him to tell them where the diagrams are. Hitomi, who has a deep fear of the Iron Cross Army, starts fleeing the scene immediately, which makes Amazonas notice her. She sends men after her, then kidnaps Obara and leaves, threatening his grandson's life. As Obara is handing the diagrams over to Amazonas, Spider-Man steals them away with spider strings and engages in a battle with a ton of Iron Cross Army goons. In the midst of the battle, Amazonas manages to escape with the diagrams, whilst Obara is shot in the leg with an arrow by Rita. Soon after, they get Obara into an ambulance and he tells Spider-Man all about the Zero engine, said to be 100 times more powerful and capable than a normal engine. He tells him that he was one of 3 apprentices entrusted to safeguard 3 separate diagrams, the other being Nishimura, who had since been murdered, and the one remaining being a person called Shizuka, the daughter of the now deceased 3rd apprentice. She's returning from a holiday and will be at Haneda Airport later today. Naturally, since she's in possession of the file diagram, she's in danger. Using the GP7, he makes his way over to the airport. The moment that she steps off the plane, she's kidnapped by the Iron Cross Army, but is being closely followed by Spider-Man, who leaps onto the truck that she's being transported in. Stealthily hitching a ride back to their base, he stops them just before they attempt to kill her, since she has genuinely no idea where the diagram is. But it's at that moment that Amazonas reveals that Shizuka was just a trap placed to bait out Spider-Man, and that they're well aware that Obara is actually in possession of the remaining diagram. They've already sent a team to go after him in the hospital, so Spider-Man, in a race against time, tries to make it to the hospital as fast as possible. Machine BEM air bomber appears in front of Obara and his grandson, attempting to kill him until Spider-Man dives through the window and starts battling him. I'm pretty sure every single time Spider-Man saves someone in the show, he does it by diving through a window. Not too much really happens here. Air bomber gets defeated by Marvelous cannons, the Iron Cross Army failed to get their hands on the diagrams for the Zero engine, and the episode ends with Spider-Man burning said diagrams once and for all, whilst this old man looks like he, quite frankly, has no idea where he is. This is it, the finale, the last episode of the series. I haven't been mentioning the titles for the other episodes because, well, to be honest, they're incredibly long-winded, but I really like this one. Although it can be translated numerous ways, there's one translation in which the title is The Hero's Shining Hot Blood. Episode 41. Spider-Man's GP7 emerges from the shadows. The Iron Cross Army are sending all the firepower that they have at him, but he doesn't care. It doesn't matter to him, he's a one-man army. He infiltrates the secret base of theirs, soloing everyone with ease, blowing it up completely after he forces the Iron Cross Army to withdraw. He's managed to destroy one base, but how many more until the Iron Cross Army is finally defeated? He returns home in great pain, exhausted, laying down on his bed. He brushes off his family and shoulders all of the responsibility alone. Amazonas reports the destruction of the secret base to Professor Monster, and he expresses his disdain at the fact that Spider-Man has eluded them once again. She's convinced that there's a spy in their army, informing Spider-Man of the location of their secret bases, theorizing that Interpol must already have a list of all of them. Professor Monster tells Amazonas their plan. Bella and Rita will release sleeping gas into Interpol, and then Amazonas will infiltrate the base and retrieve the list herself. It seems that as of recent, Bella and Rita have been growing more and more trusted and close to Professor Monster, and that their safety has often been prioritized over Amazonas's. In out all of her undying loyalty for these 41 episodes, and this is how she's repaid. I'm genuinely kind of upset for her. When she arrives to find the list, Spider-Man is already waiting there for her, claiming that this informant already told him that all of this was going to happen. He doesn't seem to understand why he's being given all of this information either. He fears that it may be part of an overarching plan. Amazoness confronts Bella and Rita, accusing them of betrayal and of being the informants. Professor Monster intervenes, telling Amazoness that they were following his orders. They inform Spider-Man of the locations of the bases under his command. He explains that he did it for two reasons. Reason one, to give Amazoness an opportunity to defeat Spider-Man, and the second reason, the secret bases no longer matter. He's decided to build an Iron Cross empire in the Amazon, an idea proposed by Bella and Rita. Amazoness asks about the rocket, to which he responds, "We're gonna fly away and launch hydrogen bombs at all of the major cities." He says that the only person who could intervene with this plan is Spider-Man, so he banishes Amazoness until she's defeated him. She knows that the escape rocket only has 3 seats: Professor Monster, Bella, and Rita. There's no space for her in his Iron Cross empire. But her loyalty is still undying and unquestionable, so she envisions her escape in the rocket with being just herself and Professor Monster. Tucker's having a munch. Yeah, he doesn't want to go skating. Hitomi tells him to get kicked by a horse and die. When she goes to turn the doorknob, it's been replaced with a foot soldier. Amazoness invades Takiya's home, kidnapping Hitomi. I guess that she really did figure it out after all. She tells Takiya that she has business with Spider-Man, and if he ever wants to see Hitomi again, to meet her at the specified location. Spider-Man makes his way there, finding Hitomi tied up to a tree. He asks her where Amazoness is, and it's revealed that Amazoness was actually disguised as Hitomi. She's intent on killing him. I mean, this is interesting because we've never seen Spider-Man and Amazoness actually fight each other. The real Hitomi cries out for his help, so he uses spider strings to yoink the 2 foot soldiers holding her hostage. He saves Hitomi, then comes face to face with Amazoness, who refers to him as being Takiya Yamashiro. Oh, I'm not. His knees start getting weak and his vision starts to blur. Amazoness reveals that when she whipped Takiya earlier, she had actually placed poison onto it, which was now taking effect, which meant that he was, without a doubt, Takiya Yamashiro. Having now finally revealed his true identity, she attacks Spider-Man and stabs him, sending him plunging into the ocean and shot at by foot soldiers. She believes Spider-Man to be dead, so she withdraws. Spider-Man crawls out of the water, convinced to stay alive for his father and for Garia. He's not ready to go yet. His revenge still hasn't been fulfilled. He begs his father for strength so that he can enact his revenge. Hello, you have a healing factor, idiot. Amazoness left behind her bracelet, which has a signal leading to the base, the main base of the Iron Cross army. He calls in the GP7 and he follows the signal. After 41 episodes, this man has finally found their main base of operations. Shocked by Spider-Man's sudden appearance, Professor Monster urges Bella and Rita to prepare the escape rocket. Amazoness pleads with him to take her, but he completely abandons her, ordering Rita to shoot and kill her. Amazoness, the girl boss that she is, uses her remaining strength to climb into the rocket all by herself. It takes off, but Professor Monster destroys the rocket out of spite. Honestly, saddest death in the series. But who's standing there? Iron Cross killer, Spider-Man.
Spider-Man!
It's time for the final showdown. Spider-Man versus Professor Monster. He manages to overpower all of the foot soldiers, Bella, and Rita, leaving Professor Monster by himself.
Spider-Man はついに宿敵モンスター教授を追い詰めた.
Using spider strings, he yoinks his staff out of his hand. Yeah, so, you remember when I said don't expect anything particularly grandiose for the final battle? Unfortunately, this is where the Leopardon suit being stolen is kind of most noticeable. Professor Monster turns himself into a giant, proclaiming that the Iron Cross army is unbeatable. Spider-Man then calls in Leopardon. He walks through his eye lasers, but he doesn't waste any time. He goes straight into Sword Vigor and just immediately obliterates him. That's it, his journey is over. Standing in front of the sunset, he takes off his mask.
Tosa. Garia. 鉄十字団を倒したよ。モンスター教授は滅びたんだ。
So now that we finished up the main series, his next major appearances would be in 2015 in the first Spider-Verse storyline and in 2018 in the Spider-Geddon storyline. He also has a final canonical appearance, which is a self-contained story taking place in his own universe in 2018's Vault of Spiders, which is where the story truly ends. So I recommend you stick around for that. Until then though, I'm going to be talking about a bunch of little fun bits of trivia, as well as some additional extra appearances or references, and even talking about his merch line. And of course, I'm talking about Ready Player One. So to kick things off with, in the 2004 DVD release box of Japanese Spider-Man, they included a special in which they interviewed Stan Lee about the character. And just to summarize, he loves the character, he loves all the unique little oddities about it, from these spider-like movements, the practical effects, the unique new villains that they made just for the show, you know, Leopardon, the giant robot, everything. He seems to think it's all great. And at the end, he even meets Spider-Man, which is pretty charming.
My son! How are you?
You might not know this, but Leopardon actually has a shield. Yeah, it's a web shield, but he never uses it. It's really only noticeable when you look at his action figure, because I mean, he doesn't need one. You know, he's practically invincible. Japanese Spider-Man actually has a surprising amount of merch. So, of course, there was a figure of Leopardon whilst the show was running, which contributed pretty heavily to its overall success. There was no Spider Bracelet toy whilst the show was running. That was only something that they actually made about 2 or 3 years ago in 2020. So in 2020, they came out with Marvel's 616 documentary, and the first episode was about Japanese Spider-Man. This kind of renewed interest coincided with a bunch of merch releases. There was a figure arts, there was a Soul of Chogokin, Leopardon and Marvelous set that came with a Spider Bracelet which had voice function, music, everything. It was really cool actually. I mean, there's even a GP7 Hot Wheels car, and he got his own Nendroid, and most recently, to my knowledge, a Marvel Legends figure to commemorate the 60th anniversary of Spider-Man. I love all of these, I think they're adorable. I actually own a couple of them, although I don't own the GP7 Hot Wheels, but that will soon change. So Ready Player One, yes, I said I'd talk about this. So this is a science fiction novel published by Ernest Cline, and it's effectively just full to the brim of pop culture references. Leopardon is mentioned by name 13 times in the novel. There's nothing particularly interesting about how he's brought up. Every time he's mentioned, I'm going to be completely honest with you, it's just kind of cringe. He's like, hey, it's Spider-Man from Japanese Spider-Man, the Tokusatsu series that I was rather obsessed with as of recent. You summon Leopardon just like you do in the show by saying change Leopardon. The main bit of trivia I wanted to mention with this is that in the movie adaptation, it seems like Leopardon, his role is replaced with the Iron Giant, from what I understand. They scrubbed him from history, probably because they couldn't get the rights. Okay, so that's my fun bit of trivia all covered. Now we're on to his comic book appearances. So, first of all, he appears in 2015's Amazing Spider-Man Volume 3, issues 12 to 15, the first major Spider-Verse story in which Peter and Otto team up with a myriad of different spider people across the Spider-Verse to defeat the Inheritors, a bunch of multiversal spider people hunters. In issue 12, Peter arrives with Takia Yamashiro and Leopardon as their greatest weapon against Solus, the father of the Inheritors. You know that this guy is no joke when the first thing he does is completely tear off Leopardon's arm before he can even use sword vigor. Even Taki is overwhelmed. Later on in the issue, he reunites with Mangaverse Spider-Man and Spider-Man J, which I find very cute. If it isn't clear already what links the three of these together, they're all Japanese incarnations of the character. In issue 14, Leopardon returns, having been repaired by Lady Spider and Miguel, aka Spider-Man 2099, patched up and presumably upgraded with futuristic tech. Taki is overjoyed. You know, he's like, oh, I knew you were invincible. So there's actually an interesting detail surrounding Takia's appearance in this event. Marvel never actually had the go-ahead from Toei to include him here. It was a complete mistake on their part, and Toei actually asked them not to use Japanese Spider-Man again after this event. However, the reception was so overwhelmingly positive that they changed their minds, and this allowed him to have more future appearances, as you already know. But it's entirely possible that we might not have been able to see Takia in Across the Spider-Verse if not for this initial misunderstanding. 2018's Spider-Geddon issue number 3 opens with Otto directly acknowledging Takia as one of their most powerful allies, as he aims to recruit him for the impending war. He even tells Takia that using the arm rockets is a waste of time, and to lead with the sword, referencing the fact that Leopardon never actually destroys a machine BEM outside of when he uses sword vigor. Throughout Spider-Geddon, they actually use Leopardon as their base of operations, and near the end of issue 3, Takia actually mentions directly that sword vigor needs to recharge, which is news to me. In the finale to Spider-Geddon, issue 5, Deimos actively goes out of his way to break inside side of and render Leopardon unusable due to the sheer threat that Sword Vigor poses to him and the rest of the inheritors. But they failed to consider that somebody else could still wield Sword Vigor, since the story concludes with a Captain Universe powered Miles Morales using Sword Vigor to eviscerate Solace. Taki even critiques his form, as you're supposed to cross your arms when you say it. Technically, he has some very minor appearances after Vault of Spiders, but I still like to look at it as the current ending to his own story. Since he doesn't play a supporting role in a crossover storyline here or anything, this is just Takiya's story. The first time we've had a Takiya-centered story where he was the primary focus in an incredibly long time, and it's called Final Galaxy Battle. Spider-Man's in space, commandeering Leopardon against Professor Monster, who seems to have survived in the form of a disembodied head. He introduces his newest machine BEM, Giga Monster Vega, which he resides inside, proclaiming himself to have become Prime Minister Monster. Spider-Man tells him that he wasn't democratically elected. So Leopardon fires off an arc turn and foot soldiers begin to infiltrate Leopardon itself. When they reach Takiya's chair, which has a little spider logo on it, might I add, he's nowhere to be seen. Emperor of Demons, God of Death, Emissary of Hell, Spider-Man. He fires into the eye of Prime Minister Monster, entering inside with his GP7. Inside, he finds Professor Monster's giant disembodied head, seemingly kept running via machines. He steals Professor Monster's head, remotely commanding Leopardon to use Sword Vigor as he escapes from the now exploding machine BEM. He tells Professor Monster that it is not the people of Earth that he will face justice from, it's the people of Planet Spider, as he sets Leopardon on course to head to the M77 Nebula of the 17th Milky Way. And with that, well, Professor Monster has finally been defeated. We get an epilogue of sorts, if that's how you want to look at it, in 2019's Spider-Verse issues 1 and 6. In issue 1, Takiya seems to be residing on Planet Spider for the time being, and he's super chill. He's just singing and having a good time. In issue 6, Miles and some other spider people struggle to fight off against a horde of machine BEMs until Takiya and Leopardon arrive to handle it. And, well, with that, Takiya's story is over, for now anyway. So, I'd just like to thank you if you watched this video all the way through. In the course of making this, there was a major YouTube policy change, and I got sick 3 times. The third time being COVID, which I currently have as I'm recording this. You know, so the universe really didn't want this video to come out, but too bad, because here it is. I had a ton of fun researching this character and making this video, so I hope you enjoyed his story too. I can't wait to see what they're going to do with him in the next Spider-Verse films. I'll personally be happy with any kind of cameo, no matter how minor, but I, of course, love to see him play a more major role in the story, especially if they can get Shinji Todo back to voice him. So yeah, thank you so much for watching, and the next video will not take as long to come out, I promise. It will be on Spider-Man Unlimited, since that's just been pretty highly requested, and I honestly have wanted to cover it for a long time, since before the channel even existed. Click here. Whoa, it's on screen right now. Click here to go watch that video when it's out, and if you click here, you can watch my previous video, or not, because it was age restricted, and I don't know if it will actually let you go there from this, so, you know, there might just be nothing here, I'm sorry. But if there is something here, you should totally go click it and watch it. But yeah, thank you so much, and I'll see you next time.